school. We're doing it old school.
Wow, no intro.
With me like pointing at the camera,
Good job.
yelling.
No intro once
No
again.
No music. This
Good
is the
old
narwhal
narwhal
way.
style.
I'm
no
feeling
fucks
like
given.
pretty high energy. I found an old can of creatine in my car that I like bought, and I was like, nah, I don't know if I want to like go hard on like working out with creatine. So it was just in my car for like a year. But then I saw a Twitter thread, and a guy was like, you should, creatine's great. It has no downsides, and it helps with like brain energy too. And I was like,
we're live.
You really
yeah, we're live right now.
No ceremony. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Yes, we're live, and he's talking about creatine. Welcome to the Creative Block.
Drink lots of water.
Yeah, and
it's bad if you don't.
We're straight into the how are our weeks, and I've been shooting a lot of hoops at the Y, and at the Y, there's been 2 young guns who challenged me to 1-on-1. What do you guys think my record is at the Y in 1-on-1?
0.
There is a number 0 in it. 0 somethings. 0 losses. I'm undefeated.
Oh, really?
I've beaten everyone, which is just 2 people. But these kids are good, like these good like college level players. Because I'm like they're young bloods, but I'm like an old guy. But I just like hit the setup threes, spot up 3. Like
how deep did you dig their graves?
They check it, and I just go whoop, and it goes in because I'm streaky. So
nice.
Yeah, so 2-0, and then today a guy challenged me to horse, and I beat him. So I'm 3-0. I'm sticking.
It's a classic. Horse is a classic.
Yeah, I'm like super competitive. That's why I'm getting back into creatine, like trying to shoot every day. And then I don't know. I try to get into gambling too, but I don't know.
Wait, you're shooting up the creatine? You said you're trying to shoot.
I'm shooting hoops.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm like popping creatine into my water.
I don't even know what creatine is.
Me neither. It's so mysterious.
Creatine. Not mysterious.
It's like you coat your house in it to stop it from getting like wet.
No, creatine it's like a super hydrate. Allows your muscles to fill up with water more. So, and it's good for weight loss.
Muscles don't fill up with water; they fill up with blood. Silly Phil.
Oh, there's cells that have. All right.
Yeah, but I don't know. It makes you swell a little bit. You're a little paunchy.
It pumps you up more, but it allows the resting phase of muscles to be less. So you have to rest less for your muscle, so you can get more reps in. And it also inflates your muscles with water.
Yeah. And I don't even know if it's good for jacking up threes, but I'm popping it to see how it goes.
But if you don't drink water on it, it's not good for your like kidneys or some shit.
When did you take the creatine?
I actually haven't taken it yet, but I have it right here. I'm going to pop it hardcore starting tomorrow.
Okay. Definitely drink water too, and don't die.
I think you're on the wrong mic, Jake.
Huh? Oh,
I think you're on the wrong mic. Yeah.
You know what? I think you're correct. Yeah, it was like I listened back to some of the Red Valkyrie auction, and I was like, why do I sound like the fucking Tin Man from Wizard of Oz?
Oh.
Thank you, Phil.
You're probably on camera mic.
Where is the freaking stream mix? Is it not even here? What?
Someone stole your mic.
So, who's going next for how their week was?
Do I sound better now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Jake, how was your week?
I'll bite. Yeah, my week has been great. I have turned in. I've been revolutionizing the enterprising nature of my business. I have the first 5 test packages of Canon, all in cardboard mailer things that aren't Gemini's because they're bigger to fit my thing. And I printed the labels using my new label printer. And it's just great. Like I paid the definitely charge people not enough postage, but that's fine. That's all this is. I've drawn all the drawings in the back of everyone's books. Pretty much nearly every order was like signed up.
Hell
So
yeah.
I did 20 of them today. And they don't, and each one is like individual. Each one is different. It's not the same thing over and over again. They're even different to Alex's 10. No, wait, Alex had 11 because he got the 10 pack. Like, it's because every time I sit down and draw one, I'm like, I don't want to draw the same fucking thing again. So I'm like, think of an idea, think of an idea. And so everyone pretty much has a unique drawing. So yeah, I'm going to stop packing them up. These are like the first 5 test ones to see if everything goes well. I'm going to drop these off at the post office tomorrow. And then I've got like 30 other orders. Yeah, it's been awesome. Here's the one thing though. If anyone out there, I don't know how many people are watching, probably like 5. If you ordered a throbbing package, not counting Alex or because he's already picked his, I sent you an email. So I did the sketch cards that come with it, and I did like 13 of them. And I'm like, you know what? I'll email people in order, and they'll be able to pick, and then I'll go to the next one, and then no one replies to the emails. So instead, I decided to lay down a gauntlet. Basically, I sent out an email to all of the throbbing package individuals, the backers, and it's like I told them to rank. They've got a photo of all the sketch cards, and they can rank them in preferred order, and which card they get will be a confluence of whoever replies first and their choice on the list. So, you know, I was a bit like, oh, fuck, this is a stupid way of doing things, asking people to choose. But I think I can still do that in the future. Just, you got to lay down the email gauntlet. And then I also said in the email, if you don't reply within 1 week, I'll just pick one. And that'll be it. So, yeah, if you did get a throbbing package, check your email. But, yeah, I only have 1 sketch left to draw in the back of the book. And there's people in chat right now who need to check their email who I'm seeing. And that's, you know, it's the only person that I asked if they had a preference of what to draw. And now I wish I hadn't asked them because I could have just done it and wrapped up that package already. But I'm like, fuck, now I can't draw it because then they will reply in the email with a preference. And then, God, knowing my luck, it will be like the opposite of what I actually draw. So, yeah, if you... there you go. Jim Alaska says just sent it in. Didn't want to point you out, Jim, because I don't want to tell.
Damn.
Yeah.
Thank you. So you just had to point him out anyways on stream. Well done.
He wrote it in the chat. He just
Andy's
wrote
from
it.
Alaska.
He did it himself. I wait until they say, and then I can do it. It's permission. But yeah, thank you very much, Jim. So yeah, that's pretty much been my week. I think my granddad had a birthday at the weekend. That was great. He's 90. My granddad's 90 now.
Wow, amazing.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
So, you know, I guess I've got at least that long to sit through if the genetics track. Yeah. Whilst other than that, I don't know. I watched like a long play of Metal Gear Solid 1. I'd never played all the way through Metal Gear Solid 1, but I watched like Giant Bomb, which is like a gaming channel that used to be so good.
Old school.
You know, that sort of applies to what we're talking about today, the test of time.
That game definitely stands up to the test of time, and I could point out games that stand up to the test of time, probably more so than like films or books or anything. You know what? You're making me think of examples, because I'm not watching The Boys right now, but I've been thinking about the difference between The Boys TV show and the comic, and I've kind of been contemplating if I read The Boys comic now, if I'd actually enjoy it. I enjoyed it back in my early 20s, but I was a very different person back then. But yeah, that's my week. Having fun with a freaking black and white label printer.
Awesome.
Nice. What about you, Rini? How's your house? Is it waterlogged?
I like how you said that as if you wish it were. Not anymore. So far, so good. No more leaks or floods. Knock on wood. Where's some wood near me? Knock on wood. Yeah, so far so good. So my week has been work and some travel and convention planning, and I got back to working out today because I've been super out of shape for months and I have totally fallen off the wagon. But I just did an hour on my little exercise bike and did some weights. So I'm very proud of myself. I'm gonna get in shape before the end of the year. That's my
Yeah,
goal.
you know, I was gonna say biking, like exercise. Biking in general is great, but exercise bike, they do that in the NBA because it's low impact. So it's you have really good
Yeah.
ROI, return on interest for fitness, and it's specifically like what do they call it? Anaerobic.
It doesn't
And
destroy your
aerobic.
joints.
It's aerobic, actually. It's more aerobic. Yeah.
Oh yeah. For some reason, I just hate running, but
Don't run.
but I
Don't
like
run.
biking
It'll
a
fuck up
lot.
your knees.
Running
Don't
is
run.
not-
Never run.
Yeah,
Everybody hates
that's part of it too. But I also don't like running anyway. So because I grew up swimming and biking all the time, so that's what I like to do. But it's like there's nowhere to swim unless you buy an expensive gym membership. So I'm just like
Yeah.
I'm just gonna get a bike, and yeah, it's been great. Feels good.
Cycling will also fuck up your knees if you don't have the height set properly. Like my dad did a lot of cycling and he has fucked up knees, and I think it might be from the cycling.
Mm.
So also be careful. Swimming is the best. It's the best.
Yeah,
for
Yes.
all of it.
Yes,
And
it is.
Swimming.
it's like full resistance on your whole body. Oh, I fucking love
I
swimming.
love
I need to
swimming.
get back into swimming.
If I was rich, I would have a pool. That's my goal. Get rich, have like a giant comic library and a pool. That's all I want. Up in the mountains with 20 corgis.
Up in the Appalachians, next to the
Yes,
crack shack.
Appalachians. Yeah. That's where I'm gonna be. It'll be great.
Yeah.
LSVRV says, yeah, but swimming involves water. That's usually how it works. Yeah.
Water's great.
Yeah, water's like
Yeah.
the best.
You
Mhm.
can take all the creatine you want if you're swimming all the time.
You could
Oh
just swim
shit!
creatine.
I'm sold.
I go swim in a river more in Narwhal.
Oh, I was in a river a few days ago.
Are you?
Yeah.
Man, I miss swimming. I used to have gym membership to Big Gym. And there's a big
Gym?
pool.
What a name.
No, that's
Big
not a
gym.
gym. That's just a guy he knows.
Yeah, he had a pool, and I would swim in his pool all the time.
Big Jim.
Some
That's a Ween song. I bet someone in the chat knows Ween, and they have a song that's like Big Jim. Big Jim.
Yeah, I miss
Alex
Big
says
Jim.
corgis hate swimming. You have a corgi? Oh.
They don't have to swim. They can stand by the side of the pool
Yeah, they could just hang out.
and think,
Yeah.
I wish I was in the water. Oh shit, I just got my shipping email from freaking Critical Blast saying my Phoenix 2.5 is finally shipped. Yes!
Oh, I'm glad. Yay!
International.
Woo! It's
yeah,
not
we-
international. It's dependent orders. Yeah, dependents got held up, but they're
Oh,
going
nice.
out now.
They were dependent on the pendants.
Ah.
Speaking of international, I sent out Jav Styler's box, which we forgot to send out. I apologize, Jav. But it's on its way. He knows it. And then we got some reviews in because we have this new thing on the website. So if you guys ordered the preview book and you got them, you should have gotten an email asking, hey, what did you think? You want to leave a review? And then Jake just ignored it.
I'm not writing shit.
Hold on.
wait, did it say did it say that I looked or something?
No, I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But we only got 3, and 50 people ordered it. So if you guys want to leave a review, you can. It's just a new cool. I like when new things happen with the site. So you could leave a review there if you want to. We did that. I got some colored pages in for the next book, which I'm super excited about. We haven't shown off yet. T-shirt designs are coming in for that, and really I'm just waiting for like 2 more pages of colors, and then I'm going to create the campaign page. But I've been writing, I've been timelining, I guess you would call it. I'm creating a timeline for another story,
Oh, I call
And
those plot beads.
what's that?
I call those plot beads. I draw little circles and join them on a line together, and I write the plot points, and I call them plot beads. But it is an accidental association with other types of beads.
Oh, like perler beads.
Yes, that's or
Yeah, perler beads.
that's
No,
the-
I can't draw circles, so I don't draw plot beads. I use this website called World Anvil, and it's like this D&D site for nerdy D&D dungeon masters. And they have a timeline program, so I could just actually make like this event happened this at this time, and then this, and then this, and this. And it was pretty cool. And I sent that to my artist too, to just get like the scope of where the story's going. This is the first time I've ever like done that in depth with a story. So
Is this the Western or is it mystery? Or,
yeah, this is the Western.
nice.
Wait,
So I'm
Phil,
super excited about that. Yeah.
is that so? That's not the event, the plot events in order of being shown. It's like the actual physical events in the order they happen in the world, but
Right.
Not,
Yeah.
okay, that's interesting.
Because in this story, we'll see our protagonist as an adult first, and then I think volume 2 will be a young arc where like you see his origins and inciting incidences and what he had to deal with as a coming to age. So I wanted that laid out so I knew what happened in what order. And it's helped a lot. It's cool. And you can do like character bios on that site as well. I would recommend it if people are DMing or trying to. I hate using the term world build. But if someone was
I'll pull
like,
you out in the streets if you use that word, Phil. I'll string
like
you up.
constructing a planet, it's more of like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm not building a world. I'm constructing a planet.
Yeah. There are terms that have baggage. That term sort of does. Cinematic does. If you talk about comics and say that comics are cinematic, that's like a bad thing now because of all the Netflix pitches.
Yeah, it's weird because there's some creators that are like, oh, comics are nothing like movies, and then other creators are like, oh yeah, I do everything in like widescreen panels to make it feel more cinematic.
Yeah.
And both are demonized,
Yeah. Nobody knows which way's up. Everyone's confused.
There are some comics where it just feels like they did just string a bunch of epic shots together. That they just imagine that they have like a movie in their mind for the future, and it's like nothing.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I had a little conversation with Jared that I don't think he'd mind me like relating this back, but we were talking about like sometimes like he was kind of had a friend from work who was a writer who had given him a bunch of notes on his story, and he's like, yeah, it's a huge document of like world building, but there's like no story there, and he didn't know what to tell the guy, and I was like, well, tell him to like write a scene, and he's like, yeah, that maybe I will, or he's like, that is a good way to approach it, is like there's world building, but can you even write a scene?
Right. Yeah.
That's like kind of can be
That's why like point. Doing the timeline thing is kind of different from a world building because it connects directly to plot, and a lot of my timestamps on there are events, which
they're
are
like scenes. Yeah.
Right. So there's scenes that happen directly to the character. It's not like I'm like, oh, the president at this time is so and so, but we don't really meet him, but the characters know of the president, and then this is the civil unrest that's happening right now in the climate stuff. Like, I don't really get into that.
Yeah.
But maybe I should.
Yeah, and like with novels, like I've seen it kind of both ways. Like people can get excited about like a whole chapter that is like telling, not showing, just huge info dump on the world. But I think maybe they wouldn't start that way. They like get you to like the characters or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Then they can give you a big dump, and people are like,
That's what you're supposed to do. Yeah.
You can earn that. You can earn some info dumps. You know what I mean? If you put them, it's such a turn off. Right. There are books where I've like just closed it and actually said out loud no,
Yeah.
Throwing the book to the
Mhm.
side, like if there's just a text dump right at the beginning. Like I'm an idiot, right? Like I find it difficult to read. I actually physically can't get past some pages if they've just info dumped, and I want to read it. I want to read them. I
Right.
physically can't do it. I will actually start falling asleep halfway through the page. So I just throw the book to the side and say no.
Yeah.
Well, what happens with those cases is it becomes a textbook. It's not a story. You're trying to tell a story, and if it's just, well, this is a bunch of world building information, that's not engaging. That's not what the reader is expecting. So why would someone who's expecting entertainment and characters and a reason to care want to continue reading if you kind of betray their expectations and instead give them a history lesson about a fake world?
I mean-
Right. It's super important, especially if you're going for like a epic wide spanning story and something akin to Lord of the Rings. It's super important for the creator to do that work and know all of that, so
Mhm.
the creator can put nuance into the story and naturally let the reader pick up on those things. You're not
Yeah.
teaching the reader a lesson, because then that feels like work to the reader. It feels like school, and you want to entertain. You don't want to put someone through a quiz later.
If you
You're
get
okay.
if you get the reader hungry for the information, they'll actually enjoy the info dumps. Like if you go back
Right.
to like
You can
Metal Gear
do
Solid.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on. Did you want to say
But
something?
you have to work. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, we're all clamoring over each other. But I agree with that point. You have to make them care first, and then the info dumps can come. But it's best to do those info dumps later in the story after they have a reason to care about the characters. Because story is about character. Why are they reading if they don't give a single shit about any of the characters yet? And once they care about what the characters are up against, what journey we're setting out on, then you have a bunch of info dump about the world. That's usually fine. But Phil also made a really good point about you should know all that information, but our job as a storyteller isn't to show off how smart we are and how much we build, and our job is to entertain the reader. So I see stories that open with a bunch of giant text walls as kind of self-indulgent, and you're not really considering, well, what's enjoyable, and you're assuming the reader already wants to read your story, which is the wrong approach. You need to convince them to read a story, persuade them that this is worth their investment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a very good point. Okay, assume that the reader doesn't want to read your story and try and
Yeah.
That's like what the opening splash page is even. You know what I mean? In everything I do, there's like a minimal text splash page that's supposed to like invite you into it, and then the first few pages are kind of like low text, so it kind of feels like you've got through part of the book already, like, oh, I'm already invested. So then when the text would increase, it's like, okay, well, I already got this far, might as well keep going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Real quick, Border Mayhem All Stars launched today. This is the main one that's on my radar. I was meaning to give it a shout out. I might try and have them on the channel sooner or later. I've been streaming quite a bit less. I've been kind of busy, which is kind of stressful too. But it's, so I want to at least let everyone know about this. You can see they got 9 backers so far. You can never go wrong with these guys. They're the greatest.
Yeah, 656 is awesome. All about getting those books out. And they already have an awesome catalog. And this is the celebration of their 20 years of doing comics together, these guys, which is so
Really?
fantastic. Yeah. Crazy.
Crazy. Yeah. They're 656 are good people. Like Phil said, they have a ton of books out. They deliver on time, and they're good friends. They actually got me booked for a show in Mexico later this year, so shout out to them. Yeah, I really like their work. I got Cryptidnals is one of my favorites. I have it somewhere here, but definitely check this out.
Yeah, and Cryptidnals is like through Diamond in stores, which is awesome.
Yeah,
Which
Yeah,
there isn't too many
cool.
people, that have that going on. So that's awesome. That is still like bragging rights or clout or whatever. I don't care what anyone says. Like, even if you don't make as much money, supposedly they say that. Like, but I love it. I want to get in stores sooner or later, but
Yeah, that is bragging rights.
yeah.
For sure, yeah. I'm super excited for this. We have them booked to come on the Diaz Brothers show, I think later this month or early next month. But they have this big schedule of shows they're going on, so everybody's going to be seeing them around. Spread this around and definitely back this because this is super fun stuff. I think it's a big crossover with all of their characters together.
Ooh,
That's fun.
Look at that, dude. That's so
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
That art
it
is
all
great,
looks
too.
Yeah.
Semi-anime.
Dario, do they call him Domo? Am I mixing this up? Or that's Dominique. Yeah. It's one of the brothers. He's kind of my favorite. And I'm trying to think which I see his art sometimes. I'm like, oh, that one. And they did a few books earlier this year, some like zine style anthologies. They did the horror one, the bus stop of horror. That was awesome.
Yeah, it's up there. Death Stop, I think it's called.
Yeah. But yeah, it looks great. And I'll show you guys the opening slide of my presentation.
Jesus. Hold on. Before we
Great
get
segue.
That's not Jungle the Jungle.
last
Yeah, I know.
Saturday,
Who fucking
was at-
remembers Mighty Joe Young? That's what I'm saying.
I
I
remember the
do
title.
kind of, but
No, you're ruining my whole point.
I remember the title. That's it. Hold on, but last weekend I was at a party. It was a beer Olympics. You guys ever hear
Yeah.
of one of these?
Like
I
ping
guess
pong
if
or
you got
beer
a gold
pong.
medal at those Olympics, Phil.
Yeah.
A load of beer you probably drank.
Yeah, I didn't drink any beer, but I participated in the games. It was bags, beer pong, and tic tac toe. But tic tac toe was flip cup tic tac toe, so you had to chug your drink and then flip the cup, and then on the table, tic tac toe was measured out in electrical tape, and then you put the cup where you wanted your space to be. It was actually pretty fun. Anyway,
When did those come into play?
yeah, my team won beer pong, so awesome. Anyways, there was some weebs at the party, as there are nowadays, and we were talking about Berserk and how everybody loves Berserk.
Oh, how original!
Hell yeah!
Speaking of the test of time.
There you go.
Yeah.
Berserk,
I
Trigon,
approve.
One Piece. And then I showed those guys that were interested in manga my books online. They're like, "What? You made so much money on Indiegogo?" I'm like, "Yeah, that goes all to the art." But it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
So
Phil definitely didn't want that reaction. He definitely isn't like, oh, by the way, drops it like is stretching whilst holding up his phone with the campaign open. Just kind of a thing I do.
Look at those girls' nipples on your cover. That's basically what it was. But yeah, I regaled them with, hey, I know people that really like Berserk.
That's how you talked about it. You don't know anything about it, but you were like, I know someone who really likes it.
Nice.
Whatever that
Berserk-
might be.
One thing about the
Berserk,
test of time, sorry, real quick, is like Berserk, I think that story has lasted like 30, 40 years of just telling it. That's like a hack to survive the test of time, is to have like so many sequels or the story be so long that it just never ends anyway. Then you just automatically survive the test of time for at least as long as the story's going.
Well, it's not a sequel. It's just he started just drawing one chapter a year, so it literally has just not ended all this time. And the comic is my age. That's how old it is. Oh, Granny.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So the opening quote: "I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tranhauser Gate." I don't remember the quote that way, by the way. I think I might have gotten what's it called? The effect, the African guy who went to jail effect. You know what I'm talking about? Where it's like
yeah, Joseph Mangala.
Yeah, Mandela.
Mandela.
Mangala's a Nazi.
Mangala.
That's the Mangala effect, isn't it?
No, it's Mandela.
No, it's
and he's
Mandela.
the opposite of a Nazi.
The Mangler effect should
Oh
be a
god.
movie.
No, it's
That
the
was
Mangala
great.
effect.
That's going in the meme.
Yeah, is that a bit? Because that's
Mandela.
funny.
That's a bit.
No, that's what it is, though. It's the Mangala.
No.
I don't know. What
Yeah. So anyway, the Mangala effect.
Yes.
It got me because that is not the quote. Like whatever. I was like, this quote when you read it, it's not as cool. But in the movie, as you remember, it is like the most epic thing ever. But yeah, he goes, all those memories will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die. And that's like what Mighty Joe Young is saying to these people here in this poster, right before he
It
dies.
was really epic when Mighty Joe Young literally did say those words in the film.
Yeah. See, we can't even deny because it's fallen so far down the memory hole. But Mighty Joe Young, I was like, what is the ultimate memory hole movie? I just tried to think of one. I was like, I don't know. Mighty Joe Young, which just the fact that I have a book that of a little pulled it out of a thing, but it's apparently it's a remake. So there's like, so
Okay,
it kind of
fine.
survives the test of time automatically that way too. Like Mighty Joe Young, apparently it's a ongoing mythic
that the-
story.
Who's the woman? Is that the chick from Will and Grace?
She's a lesbo.
No, she's not a lesbian.
Yeah, it's what is her? It's the lesbo who's
No, I'm thinking of Dharma and Gray, not Will and Grace. Is that Dharma
like
and Gray?
a movie woman.
No, it's who's the famous lesbo who has a talk show who might be a Satanist.
Ellen DeGeneres.
Yeah, it's Ellen
Elaine
DeGeneres'
I was
wife.
actually gonna ask which
Oh,
one because there's
Portia?
also Maddow, right?
Yeah,
The other
and Oprah.
oh
That's
dear,
Cal
so
Maddow.
many.
You're thinking
Yeah.
of Portia de Rossi.
Oh, they say it's Charlize Theron. I don't know if I believe that.
Charlie Theron. Yeah, that sounds right. That face matches that hair.
Not the hair.
I mean, that name matches that hair.
No. Anne Hesh, dude, it's Anne Hesh.
Is
That
it?
and that's the wife of
It's H.
Ellen.
You're just gonna Mangler effect everything.
Yeah.
Hetch.
Yeah. But this made me think of it as the idea of things getting lost. But we'll come to that later because it's sort of a SJW thing where they're saying like, lots of stuff was suppressed because white people were in charge. So a lot of stuff has been lost to the test of time that shouldn't have been. And what would they call the Western canon doesn't deserve to be the Western canon. We'll talk about that because that's a big part of surviving the test of time at the kind of the highest level is to like become part of the Western canon. Or, maybe there's like an Eastern canon or whatever. But yeah, and it's funny, it's like debatable. And to some degree it's true. Like the idea of losing that your story will be forgotten eventually and how you can mitigate that and avoid it. I think people fantasize about it. I don't know about you guys, but I do. And like, if I could list like a goal, it's like, man, I sure wish one of my stories would live longer than me,
I've imagined how you would do that. So there's really good paper that you can make using hemp that's like virtually indestructible. Or it's either find a way to print your comics on hemp paper, or make a black and white only comic and have them chiseled into stone and buried deep underground.
That's funny. That's not a bad idea at all. And that's a little bit like what I'm talking about. Like technology plays a huge part in surviving the test of time. War plays a part in it. That's kind of part of some of the histories written by the victors or whatever, supposedly.
That's it. I'm gonna chisel every page of Fiendish in black and white into metal plates and bury them in Death Valley or some shit.
Literally.
You can
if you go back, like what's the ultimate thing that is like the surviving test of time? It's like, some of the religious texts, but Ulysses, the Odyssey is like the first story ever. And there's something called the Emerald Tablet. It's like a hermetic tablet. There's just one. In the myth, they change it to the tablets. They make it more than one. But there's just one that survived, and it's like it's like pre-Bible, whatever. But that one's kind of funny. I watched a few YouTube videos on it just even this past week. And one of the things is like, it kind of like invents the idea of the spirit world and or souls and or ghosts. I think that's its like main claim to fame. Don't quote me on this, but so it's like, it's so early. It's like, hey guys, what about this? There's like 2 of us. One you can see, one you can't. And everyone's like, what? Mind blown, bro. like back then, you know, like they couldn't believe it. And they're like, dude, get this guy a fucking microphone. People got to hear what he has to say.
What is it? The spectral plane?
Yeah, they're like, what else you got? What else you got, man? He's like, and there's like a world above ours that we can't see. And when you die, you might go there. Like, oh my God. He's blowing my mind, dude. This guy's crazy.
I don't think that was like the invention of the spirit world, but
Yeah, no, it didn't exist before then.
Yeah.
At some
Right,
point,
you're
someone had to invent it, right? Unless
It's more likely
or,
that
like, get revealed to him.
it's more likely that everybody in the town killed that one guy.
Yeah.
For good reason.
I think
Yeah.
For inventing the
Yeah.
spirit room.
Yeah, and I've been watching The Greatest Story Ever Told, which is like,
Not happy.
it's a cool version of the Jesus story, and it's really pretty great. And that's a funny sort of test of time one, because it's like every star of the era is in it. It's such a huge production, and it's a good movie, but they kind of just do the Jesus story. But I didn't realize, like, I know the Jesus story. Speaking of like canon growing up in America, it like osmosifies into your brain. And so, like, you guys, I could ask you now, like, what are the miracles Jesus does? And I bet everyone knows. You know, it's like walk on water.
Excuse me.
Well,
know.
you grew up in Taiwan, so for you,
that
it's
blind man, not
You grew up in
blind.
the spirit realm, Irene, that was
Yeah.
invented
Oh,
by
yeah,
some
yeah,
guy.
that-
You're a dirty foreigner. You
Gilgamesh
do not know.
invented. Yeah, Gilgamesh invented my dirty foreigner. Spirit world. Huh.
Yeah. But shoot, yeah. So that anyway, that movie was good. But yeah, in that one, Jesus, he's kind of like just blowing people's minds. Even at that point, they're like, "What, dude? Souls, dude." There's like a part where he's talking under a bridge, and and some kids walking by, and
Right.
the kid ends up following him, and it's like John or something. It's one of he eventually becomes one of the disciples.
Baptist, yeah.
No, the Baptist is dope though. That whole scene was great. The movie's cool, but
Are you talking about Godspell?
No, but so Jesus is just like talking about like some stuff like heaven or whatever,
Yeah.
and he's like, you don't even need to be rich on earth. You can be rich in heaven. Blah blah blah. Sort of some like stuff kind of like that. And there's a kid like hiding but listening up on the bridge because he's under the bridge. And in the morning, the kid's following. And they're like, "Why are you following?" And he's like, "I heard what he was saying. I liked it. I want to hear more." I'm like, dude, it's just like, you know what? I don't know. You know what? It's proto is religious and Messiah type stuff is Bitcoin and shitcoin is of the modern era.
What?
Is
Would
like
that be
Feeling all
reversed?
just going off on a bunch of like
Have you taken
schizophrenic
Ritalin
tangents.
today? Like, what have you?
He's really hyped
Not
up. That was like
really.
5 tangents in a row. I mean,
yeah. Sorry.
No,
I don't
keep
even
going. No, don't
we
stop.
went from
Don't-
story
don't
to
focus now.
Jesus
Keep going.
to okay.
Well, like Jesus comes along and he's like he kind of grows a natural and at the time you would call it like a cult, but it has more positive vibes and Jesus is like super legit, whereas a lot of cult leaders they are not legit. So if you imagine like a cult meaning it's just smaller and it's growing, but if the leader just being like super legit dude, like super cool, super nice, whatever, and even not always nice is part of the cool thing about Jesus, whatever, but everyone loves him. But they more and more people are like listening to him, and it's like rumors are spreading. People are coming. They're like, hey, he's going to be talking here. So like more and more, and then the whole time, the structure of like the power is interesting because the area is controlled by the Jews, and then they're controlled by a King Herod, and then he's controlled by the Romans. So it's like 3 steps up. So the Jews are even the first ones to be like, yo, this is weird. There's a guy like talking blasphemy, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, we should ask King Herod what we should do. And King Herod's like, I should maybe ask the Romans or whatever. And the Romans are like, yeah, if he's like building an army, then we need to stop him.
Right.
And so blah, blah, blah. And they keep, et cetera, et cetera.
Can you
but-
just stream just about this and so I can
please,
watch it?
just
This
keep
is very
going.
interesting.
Yeah.
No,
but-
Our
Bible
world's a
study is
born
great.
again
So
Christian.
yeah, Jesus is kind of like
What?
Jesus is kind of like Bitcoin because he's like the one. And then
Right,
the,
the one.
yeah, because like Bitcoin spreads like rumors, people hear about it, people
Shows
like
the
buying
one.
in. And then like a shit coin can come along and like you can get a little following. Like
Right.
anyone
Oh
could
my
start
God.
a little following and be like talking about God and stuff. But the best would kind of rise to the top. He would like build a bigger following, have like a bigger impact. And Jesus had the biggest impact of all of all
Really,
these.
right.
every religion was kind of like that. It started small and then it spread, and more people believe in
Like
it.
AIDS.
That's generally, yeah. Bitcoin
Yeah.
is like AIDS.
Yeah.
Everyone,
Middle age.
this
AIDS?
is the. We should just wrap the show now. This is the end.
God,
We
AIDS,
can't
it's like
top
AIDS
this.
2. Yeah.
I do actually have a point to make vis-a-vis religion and stuff sticking and growing. So the reason why I think things do stand the test of time, especially religions, is because there's kind of like a core truth within your DNA, which is like a truth to being human, and the media or thinking processes or philosophies that cut closest to that truth connect with the most people across time, and in the case of like religious texts, get refined a lot too. Those ideas get distilled, and that's kind of why they stick around. Not because like, oh, it was cool, I guess. I think because it cuts through to an innate truth. An alien wouldn't understand it. You can show an alien because they would potentially have like a different truth, different best mode of being. That's
Yeah.
true to them. That's like Jesus is supposed to be the best mode of being for a human. You know what I mean? It's
I
supposed to
do
be like
think
the best way to behave.
Right.
most
Yeah.
religions really they're they're stories too, right? Religions are a set of stories that a culture tells themselves, and I've heard it said that there isn't an overarching religion in the U.S. anymore, even though it's majority Christian, of course. But fandoms like Star Wars have been compared to a religion in the Western world. And I kind of understand it because it's an inspirational story that is a blueprint for how someone should act and what a hero is that a lot of people grew up with and they tell themselves. And stories like that stand a test of time. And a lot of religions are like that. They're blueprints for how to live. They're a set of stories that people believe in. And I do think that all religions that are successful have touched on something universal and human. That's why people gravitate towards them, regardless of if certain self-serving people take advantage of that dedication. That's immaterial. That doesn't really change the fact that at the core, there's a reason humans all need religions, because it's a set of inspirational stories.
What's interesting about the Star
Yeah.
Wars comparison is there's obviously an element to religion where you have religious places like churches, right? Like the majesty of a cathedral. They have the same effect as a movie theater. Like a movie theater is essentially like a church. And the film being said is like the story being told at the front of it. Like there's a parallel between that, those two kind of like settings, that there's an element of the theatrics of having like a big space, like loads of people in the movie theater collecting in a space. I don't think anything could maybe. Do you think that someone could make something and then it just gets dumped on streaming and then it becomes like, oh, it's connecting to my core? Do you think there might be an element of like, no, you need to go to this church of film and sit with a group of people and experience like the big glowy light thing, for it
I
to like
think-
truly connect?
I think
Both.
nowadays you can. I think probably there was more of a real. We still need in-person connection, but a story and a work can spread just on the internet now because the internet exists, and there are forums and groups on the internet that can grow to become quite big. But that's the function of real life gatherings like cons. I think cons and panels, some of them are, you could think of it as a religious experience. These are stories that people gravitate around that they really, really, really passionately love, and we all know how much some fandoms love the stories that they are centered around. There's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's weird. It's weird to think it's like, what's the best movie that's never been in a theater.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think there really
Oh, yeah.
is one. Like, you have things like, oh, everyone loves Stranger Things, or Breaking Bad's amazing, but I don't think those things connect to people on like a religious level.
Television series.
Like, I think
though.
they get addicted to the arc, and they kind of like want to figure out the mystery, which I think is like a more cold way of thinking.
Yeah.
Whereas
But
those big religious experiences, like Star Wars, I kind of think they can only happen in a movie theater.
You know what? One that I feel people talk about that way about it is True Detective season 1, and that's a TV show, but it's like 8
Yeah.
episodes. So there could be
Yeah.
examples maybe. Anytime where it definitely like rises to the top like that, it's kind of like you have to be almost like the best, and like not necessarily like the best ever of all time, but like whatever your little group of competition is, got to be the best, and then that's one way that you kind of just survive that way through the years or whatever. It's fun to think of like some stuff. It's like, what if I say something, it's like the first thing that pops into your head, and you know what the things are that like have survived the test of time. So it's like music, Elvis, Beatles, Michael Jackson, basketball, Michael Jordan, like only Michael Jordan too. Like, I don't know, you're like, you could think harder and you're like, I don't know, Magic Johnson. No,
Rodman. Come on.
yeah, Magic Rodman. I don't know.
Magic?
Dennis Rodman? Dennis Rodman. Yeah. No, Michael Jordan, pretty much. And yeah, some stuff gets forgotten. It'll get forgotten with technology just plays such a huge, weird role, but which it doesn't exactly apply to books, because books, like, the technology doesn't really change that much, but everything else. But yeah, the test of time. And then there's that guy and a little doodle.
We're gonna go back.
Yeah. So remembered versus forgotten. This is interesting. Through my research, Dune, we all know, obviously the movie's getting made about it now. We can
Never
say
seen
this passed the test of time, and it will, you can just, at some point too, like it will continue to pass the test of time. It's forever going to be remembered. But an interesting thing is it got made into a movie in the 80s, and then it got made into a TV show, and now it got made into a movie again. That's part of the stuff that'll kind of keep it in the lexicon or whatever. But
sure.
there's some X factors maybe of why that book. I don't even know. But that book tied. It was published in 1965, and it tied for the Hugo Award. So the other book that tied with it, another great sci-fi book that at the time people considered equal, is Roger Zelazny's This Immortal, which I think it's fair to say that did not pass the test of time. Which is this passing the test of time. It's a little bit arbitrary. It does not mean that it's bad. Like, it's a little bit like bad luck. It's a little sad. Like this book, I bet you it's great. And I read up a little bit on it, and you can like Google it. You'll find one person online talking about how much they love it. So like in that sense, it's not dead yet, but it's just not like Dune. And Zelazny, his name is still out there, still surviving as a good sci-fi writer. But again, just not on that level of Frank Herbert's Dune.
You should have used less letters in the title, and it would have been easier to remember.
Yeah, maybe that's like
Yeah, that's the only reason.
Yeah, I
I
would have
do
titled
think-
it IM. I-M-M.
I remember a similar comparison with Lord of the Rings. At the time Lord of the Rings was published, there were a lot of competing fantasy books. Tolkien was not the first fantasy writer to, I mean, of course you have Narnia and stuff like that from that same era. Tolkien was known for being the most expansive with his world building, but he was not the only fantasy writer that was quite revolutionary. But why did his work survive the test of time? I think with Dune, it probably was because of the people that latched onto it, because you can have a really great work, but when you have someone who happens to be a filmmaker with a lot of resources that wants to adapt that work, if you get a fan like that, then you kind of win in the test of time category. That reaches, your work can reach more of an audience just because of that. So just getting your work in front of people's eyes matters a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Dune has like multiple sequels, which kind of that can make the story hit harder too, like because it's just a bigger story with more going on, so people get more attached that way, which I think that could potentially be a big deal. Like This Immortal is kind of a one-off, fun little great little story, but yeah, like it just doesn't.
Oh yeah.
It pops off and then kind of fades or whatever. but Dune kind of keeps
Right.
going.
It doesn't create an addiction. You got to create an addiction.
Yeah,
And
if
then
I
you
was
want
gonna ask if the Immortal was long form. Honestly, long form is interesting because that might be a good point where just being really persistent and having a long form story that keeps on coming out. Well, it's sort of like just like with crowdfunding. Every time a book comes out, you have a chance to hype up this story and this work and this concept, and you build an audience over time. Ideally, that increases, and a long form story has more of a chance to continue building that audience. So look at stories like One Piece and Berserk. Even if those stories weren't really good, which they are, just the merit of how long they've been going, that's commendable, and that's immediately attention grabbing, right?
Yeah, and I bet we could think of examples where that somehow still didn't work, but maybe it can only be positive, but things will still die even if you turn them into a series or whatever.
Sure.
Oh yeah, who's
But-
made some? Well, I guess you wouldn't know about it.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to think of like
Something
think of
nothing
memory
would-
hold stuff. Yeah, but yeah, it's like the music thing, sports, movies are kind of like that, and then movies going back. I wonder. We'll get to that because that's kind of related to the technology thing. But so with one thing with Dune's kind of iconic and it's got the iconography in the desert. And my brother has an interesting anecdote where he is a Marine or was a Marine, is a Marine. He's out of the Marine Corps now, but he was in Afghan is what they called it, in Afghanistan, and he would get like weekends off or whatever, and he would walk out to the desert, take his boots off, put his toes in the dunes, and pull out Dune and read it in the desert. And he said it's the best reading experience he's ever had. He'll never forget it, and he'll tell people. So he had this weird, like you're talking about, like the church like experience or whatever. That's like for him now. That book has like a forever connection, and that could spread to other people, but it's not group based. It's kind of just
Well,
for him. So
if people have those experiences, they can kind of become. Sorry to keep using the religious terminology. They could become evangelists for the IP. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If they have that really profound experience,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
would tell everyone about it. And you're telling us about it now because of that. You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't be telling us that story if it was like, yeah, you read it, you thought it was cool. Like, you've got a story now linked to that, and you're sharing it with a bunch of people.
yeah. You know what's a funny one for me is I was at a garage sale once in college, so like a while back, and there was a book. It's called Never Cry Wolf. It's a little tiny little novella almost, and I love those tiny books because I can read them fast. And it said 10 cents, like a little sticker with 10 cents written on it. And I go, ooh, what's this? I pick it up. Right underneath it was a dime. So it's like, oh my God, it's meant to be. So I grabbed the dime.
Yeah.
I bought the book. Then I read the book and I love that book. Like it's a classic and I will never forget it. So yeah.
Cool. What's interesting too, I think we were tying this back to what we were talking about at the beginning. Having a lot of world building and having the writer knowing everything about their setting applies to Dune. And I haven't read The Immortal, but I do suspect that part of the success and immersion of works like Dune and Tolkien is how well the writers know their worlds, but they don't tend to do info dumps. Like Tolkien did the Silmarillion, but he decided, like, I have an info dump, I'm going to put it in a whole separate book, which is kind of the way to do it. I approve. And Dune has so much world building, but it is drip fed. You just launch into the characters. You start small with Paul, and then it expands from there from his perspective. And Herbert got so into ecology and culture. I think he did on-site research. This is also why I really like Vinland Saga, because Yukimura went to like Norway or something, did on-site research to get everything accurate, and that shows through the work. So I think part of creating longevity is being that dedicated to creating something immersive.
Yeah, like Tolkien even spent some time in England to do research for Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, that really helps you. Lord of the Rings is just England. He even jumped
spent
into
some time in
volcano.
Middle Earth.
You people
Yeah,
know.
he traveled to Middle Earth.
He went to his own personal volcano and threw his wedding ring in. I don't know.
No, he didn't. But then he had a fight with a guy over it, and then his friend
the guy bit his finger off.
Yeah.
He did kind of go to war, which I guess helps, you know.
Oh
Maybe.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
Which, if you like, it's pretty obvious that's
Went
what
to
influenced
IRL
that
Mordor.
relationship.
Yeah.
It's that whole brothership. You can tell that experience shows through.
Henry Bemis. I was lucky enough to meet Herbert as a kid. That's awesome. Yeah, that era
Awesome.
of those writers, that like both these books too, they were published in magazines that, and then they later get collected. It's almost like manga style, like, and then they get collected and turned into a novel.
Yeah.
And
That
I'm
was
like,
super popular in the 50s and 60s, having a science fiction magazine that would just have chapters of stories. Like a lot of Stephen King's early stuff is like that. In fact,
yeah, that's how all these guys got their
Gunslinger.
start. It
Yeah.
sounds cool. I kind of want to look more into it. And this era too, it kind of feels like it's sort of like the best almost. Like, I don't know, like that's another weird thing. I have it in a slide, like the modern now time is not always the best, I'm pretty sure, but I don't know. I want to go back and look at more of those books. So yeah, now we're with the technology. There's one anecdote about the technology, and the medium affects it too. So there's books, film, comics, video games. With video games, we are at an interesting time now where graphics are not getting better anymore. If anything, they're almost like getting worse in a weird way. So people have kind of gone back and reappraised, because in the early days, if like a 2D game came out for PlayStation, people would be like, nah, show me the 3D. I want to see the new stuff.
Right,
and these
yeah.
games would get forgotten. Now those games are going back and everyone's kind of reappraising them, trying to find. And that's kind of a job that the audience will play, or like the culture will play. Like they try and pick through, like, well, shit, we were so obsessed with the technology, we kind of forgot. Like now we're over it. Let's see if we missed anything. And one example that's kind of funny is Final Fantasy X versus Final Fantasy 12. Is I think these are both PS2, I want to say, and one is right at the beginning of PS2 where everyone's so excited about the technology, and one's right at the end of PS2 where everyone is really looking forward to PS3 and nobody gives a shit about PS2 anymore.
Next gen, yeah.
Yeah, and Final Fantasy 12, like, it sort of fell through the memory hole. Like, it doesn't get talked about that much. Now it is slightly getting reappraised, which is kind of nice. So it might not fully die, but you can see just the contrast. And maybe there is like a quality, you know, Final Fantasy X is definitely a classic. But they're both good and they're both Final Fantasy.
No,
so.
what was happening with video games was the jump in fidelity was allowing for better storytelling, like say like Zelda versus like Metal Gear Solid when it came out, to go back to that. Like the stuff that could be done with the PlayStation was used great in Metal Gear Solid. I think there was a time then it started to just be like the jump in fidelity didn't really help the storytelling as much. Do you know what I mean? Like PlayStation, you have a 3D world and you can have camera angles, you can make things a little bit cinematic. Like from then on, all you're really doing is like bumping up the fidelity. Like how much storytelling does it really add to have like better skin detail?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Maybe it lets you get lost in it.
But that's what's weird is like, so I put this here, Link to the Past, the Super Nintendo Zelda. It's perfect. That's like, it's getting reappraised as like, wait a minute, that you can actually, in apples to oranges way, you can literally compare it to Elden Ring, and it's like 50-50. You know, it's like to each their own. Like obviously Elden Ring probably get picked still a little bit more, but you're like, this is a perfect game, and we took it for granted, even though we know it's a classic. So there is that process. I think people are going back. People are changing what they expect and and that one doesn't have like crazy storytelling. It's just a fun game, you know? So.
Well, no, you get captivated, but so with a lower fidelity visual, or even in games like a lower fidelity of the mechanics, like simpler mechanics, there's gaps for people to project into, so they can actually relate to it more. Like having the silent protagonist is usually so that you can kind of project onto them. It's like creating gaps
Like
in media. Let's say Adventure Time. Like even a character with like a simple face like Finn, that face is purposely designed to look that simple so you can kind of project into them a little bit.
Yeah. Continue, and then I.
As soon as you start, you make more gaps for the frog DNA of the user, right? As soon as you start being like, no, I'm going to define absolutely everything. It's like the viewer doesn't really play much of a part, so they don't feel themselves in there as much. But yeah, a lower fidelity thing.
Yeah. So that could be like a little. At first, we're obsessed with the fidelity, and then that kind of goes away once you kind of hit the end point. You're like, well, you kind of snap out of it. And then you're like, well, what? Yeah, let's go back. What's back there? Or like even modern but less stylized, blah blah blah. Yeah, you know what? With this, that's interesting is with comics, something like this happened, but it was with digital, like Photoshop, etc. People got obsessed. At any point, the new technology comes. I feel like it's almost like a trap. I do feel like you kind of want to avoid it if possible. It's like a lot of artists, they get obsessed with the new technology and they kind of like overuse it. And some of those comics are dated to the point where like they will fall down the memory hole because like that, that crappy early Photoshop coloring, like nobody wants that anymore, like ever. So it's gone. It's never going to be reappraised, I don't think.
Well,
do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. It was the cutting edge for the time, but then it's not. It doesn't really have longevity, unlike something that would be like more stylized.
Well, it's so funny too because you're talking about like the graphics reaching to a point, but and everybody wants it to be like 3D and everything, and then you look at something like Cuphead, which just turns it all on its head, and that's all hand animated, not even pixel art, it's hand drawn, and that's like, I think
blowing minds.
Yeah, I mean that still blows my mind. And I still love watching videos of that, and that's kind of built a franchise of its own, and seemingly they're doing more stuff with it.
Sneak attack, Jack. Use your $2 power. He's calling you Jack, Jake.
$2.
$2.
Now that's money. Did it actually work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well done.
by the way, Caleb, I sent out all merch orders for Canon. They're all out. They all actually went out there. They did. So, look forward to your beanie.
What about keychains?
You mean your keychain, Phil?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll get it.
Oh my god.
So, Michael Dice has a good comment. Some works are really of their place in time. Yeah. This is a later slide that we'll get into this, but it may not hold up years later. I hesitate to recommend old stuff I loved at the time to often revisit and wonder what the fuck I was thinking. One example with movies that's funny is 3D. Like, I guess 3D, it was a thing in the 50s. All those movies fell down the memory hole. And they're like, because you could say old stuff in general might slowly fall down, like what even of the old movies, but the best will still survive. Even silent films like Nosferatu is like still surviving, getting remade this year, 100 years later. Like, it's pretty impressive and kind of fun. But yeah, some of those like gimmicky 1950s 3D movies, I think they're actually done for forever. And it's not like they lost a war and they're hidden history. It's just like, nope, that's not going to happen. Nobody's going back to get back into 1950s 3D. And that might even be a thing with like the 2012 3D. People are really in with Avatar and stuff. It's just like,
I would get into old school 3D. I have the glasses here. I got my crossed 3D comic. I want to do a whole 3D book too. But maybe that's like a going back and seeing. I have a 3D TV even, and I wanted to get 3D working in HoloFist so I can sit in front of my TV and play the game in 3D.
Yeah. Well, see if you can find a good old 3D movie that used it as a gimmick.
Yeah, I don't know how to look for it. Like, literally, I think the only 3D stuff I've watched on my TV is like Jurassic Park, like the original Jurassic Park in 3D.
Get Dredd, dude. Dredd's big gimmick, and probably why it didn't do well, is it was filmed to be 3D.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
All of the IMAX showings were 3D. That's why it made no money at the box office, and then everybody bought the hell out of it when it went to DVD.
See, that's Dredd is in danger in some ways of like, it didn't fully fall down the memory hole, but it kind of underperformed, and maybe it'll get reappraised at some point. Like it could get
It's yeah, I
looked
think
up.
I think it has a cult following, and there's a lot of people want a sequel. I
Yeah.
love that film, but
I
like
just-
like 3D's even fun gimmick in comics. I know Camel has an issue of Boots and Heels set in 3D. I have. You said what was that book? Crossed at a 3D issue.
Yeah.
Hillbilly, which is one of my favorite indie books by Eric Powell. Hillbilly had a 3D issue that was pretty badass. Like he hunts this like giant winter wolf in the snow. It's actually a hallucination. I think at the beginning of the story, it's not in 3D, and then he takes ayahuasca, or he has like some peace pipe ceremony with a Native American guy, and then he hallucinates that he's being hunted by this three-eyed giant wolf in the snow, and all that hallucinations in 3D. It's pretty cool.
I'm gonna
Nice.
do a 3D Connell. That's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just a weirdo who likes 3D. I wish it wasn't a gimmick, and I wish it was just another option. Like I have one of the last 3D TVs that they made that was like really high. It's a nice 3D TV. It can convert normal TV into 3D. I never use it, but I wish all video games could just be played with 3D glasses on.
Yeah. I wish our world could be 3D so I could just see 3D all the time.
Yeah, I wish real life was not flat.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. So Michael Dische was like a product of its time, which so here you could say time capsule. So something could be dated. That's usually negative connotation. Time capsule could be positive, and it can almost like serve a little bit of like a positive function for society. We kind of want time capsules in a way. So you could kind of embrace being dated. If you can make something good that's dated,
Yeah.
it becomes a time capsule. Or there's something like timeless. And I think that's a little bit what Jake was talking about with like the ultimate truth. Anytime you're kind of tapping into that, you're timeless.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
it's so it is like funny of like which one? Can you do them both? Can you be timeless and a time capsule at the same time? I'm like that's like almost like what the really good classics like American Pie are almost like that. Fight Club is very much a 90s movie, and you can watch it if you're trying to study the 90s, but it's like
So is the Matrix.
yeah, and both I think of both those like that's another one. If you say like movies like 90s movies that will live forever, it's like Fight Club, The Matrix, Jurassic Park. There's not too many.
Yeah, I think too these terms, especially like the dated thing, could be unintentionally turned into a gimmick that's a crutch. And you see that a lot now in the American film industry where it's like, oh, we're gonna make another Twister film. You remember Twister? There's this new one, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have those actors, but you remember that. So you have like that what people call member berries, where it's like, oh yeah, you remember that? You liked that 20 years ago. We're giving that to you again because we can't invest in original IPs. So we're just taking ideas that someone 30 years ago came up with and made a bunch of money, and we're gonna cash in on that again.
Yeah.
They do that because they're like there's a proven audience for this, so there's no
Right.
risk. That's their
Well-
thinking, right?
Well, that's the thing too. That we all complained about in 2017, 2018 in the comic book industry, where it's like, oh, instead of making a new original character that's diverse, we're going to take the character that makes money, that we know has made money for the last 40 years, and we're going to force that character to be diverse, just to artificially make it look like we're doing something good, or virtue signaling, stuff like that, where it's not natural, original, unique idea. You're taking an already
Yeah.
money-making idea and then morphing it into something else.
That relates with the art and society. So this is like a timeline. Here's the art. So you could picture if the art connects to the future, that's when people go, oh, it's ahead of its time, that could possibly be a goal too, as a creator. I don't know if you'd want to do that, but you can kind of like, oh, it was so ahead of its time, blah blah blah.
If you're ahead of your
Almost
time, you end up getting those are the ones that get forgotten, though. You know what I mean? Oh, it was so ahead of its time, and it's like, yeah, it was like 2 or 5 years too early, and no one gives a shit even now.
Yeah,
No, it works like 1984 and Brave New World were ahead of their time, but they are remembered still. There's a way of doing it, I think.
yeah, I'm sure you can like, yeah, get it right. And then it's funny the art. So going straight down, that's like for modern audiences, and that's like bad. Or there's straight down, and it's like, it's of its time. It's a time capsule. There's positive associations. It's so, yeah, it's so like of its time. And then if it's back here, people could be like read the room, bro. Like it's out of touch. Read the room.
Oh yeah.
Right.
It's
I think there's a balance between, say, a movie like American Pie is very much of its time, but I think it would still be watched in the future as this was a charming representation of their time. But one of the movies like what Phil is talking about, where is all the stuff that's coming out now is just a sequel or a remake of something else that's more from the past, and they just recast the characters for no reason other than activism. I don't think those would be viewed in the same way. That wouldn't be viewed as a charming, oh, this is a indication of its time in a positive way. It sure is an indication of our time, but in the sense that this is a creative wasteland, and we will want to memory hold this entire decade.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's super true. So I wonder if there is an example of something commemorating our modern times in a positive way, and it almost like, I don't know, like it can be a good movie maybe, but it would almost have to have some of that truth that Jake's talking about. It'd have to be a good movie about shitty times. Then people would be like, oh yeah, like I can relate or whatever. Or we can watch that
Yeah,
again.
has
Like,
there been a movie that encapsulates this era that's been revered?
yeah, like if there was a movie about this era that it says it's great, then that's like almost like propaganda. And not propaganda is another thing. Like I don't know how much that is an association with the fact that it might get forgotten, but that's another like kind of metric to measure it by. So then, were you guys gonna say something?
I was gonna say, yeah, it's hard. I would imagine it's hard to make a story that's based in modern day, and you don't see, especially now, but you look back and like, for example, like we were talking about, The Matrix was made at the end of the 90s, and it was so 90s. The cell phones they used, the technology that they had in The Matrix, right, reflected how we lived at that time. And like,
And the cubicle imagery too,
right,
and even like the
and
clothes and
there's nothing like
cars.
now, I mean, that I've seen. But then again, that like there's all these like really weird streaming films. I don't know if you've seen this genre, but it's like, I think it's called like screen movies, where the whole film is filmed through a technology screen, where it's like, oh, this girl's computer is on and you're watching her in her bedroom
Oh yeah,
through the webcam, and she's texting on her phone and you're seeing the text messages. It's like super low budget, super weird new genre of making films. I think that would be the equivalent. Like that's the modern day.
yeah,
It's
yeah. It
bizarre.
happens. It happens like accidentally. Like if you set out to make a movie of like quintessential of our time, I think like The Matrix is like, let's make a badass sci-fi movie. Then
Yeah.
they accidentally make a time capsule for the 90s.
Yeah.
And I feel like Barbie might have been kind of like that for our time a little bit. Like even though it's like all pink, they kind of made a little time capsule for our era accidentally.
That is interesting. Yeah, like it's having a glimpse. I was trying to think of the most recent one, but if Barbie is one, it would be the most recent. Like the earliest one, the closest one I could think of was like Super Bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and that does have like a feel to it.
That has a
like
feeling
time
of-
capsule feel.
Yeah, like a feeling good about that particular era that it was in, and it was like just people existing in that time, living their little lives. That one summer.
Yeah.
It's a good example.
So with this term, the Western canon, I think they use that. That's like what they teach in college. If you take a lit course, they make you read the Western canon, and it's like all the best books of all time or whatever. And then they debate of what should be added or taken out. And like that's another one where some of it kind of bleeds in and we all know a lot of it without even knowing. Like I think it's what's the one the Great Gatsby is like one that they put in there. And some of them like you're like I read that book, it didn't like blow my mind, whatever, but everyone says it's great.
I like the film.
Oh, I agree. I don't get that movie or that book at all.
Yeah.
Didn't
Oh,
that
it's
crazy journalist guy who had the cigar and the bucket hat and the glasses, didn't he like retype that whole book?
F. Scott Fitzgerald.
No.
Yeah, you're talking about what's his face with the gun. He'd always shoot his gun and do drugs.
So, something in Vegas.
Hunter S.
Barry
Thompson.
Logan in Las Vegas.
Hunter
Who
S.
rewrote that?
He
Hunter
rewrote
S. Thompson.
Great Gatsby.
Yeah, Hunter S. Thompson. Didn't Hunter S. Thompson retype the whole of The Great Gatsby so that he would like know? He said it was so he would know what it was like for like his fingers to write something that great. Was it The Great Gatsby?
Oh,
That
that's like
seems
tracing.
a little
That's
over
hilarious.
the
That's
top
funny.
for
That's
I don't get it. It was okay. It didn't. I don't know why this is so famous.
Right?
I had to read it in high school.
It's drama.
I've never even read it, but apparently Hunter S. Thompson retyped the whole of Great Gatsby. And then when I read that, I'm like, I wonder if what it would be like to redraw an entire great comic that you like.
Yeah, it's like tracing. Great
Yeah.
Gatsby is totally time capsule.
I didn't bother doing it.
Too. In kind
It's
of
a
very
bit of a
positive
time
way.
capsule. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
understand why it's this famous, but it does encapsulate an era.
Well,
If you just
that's
copied a whole. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say to kind of go with what Narwhal was saying. It's like that time capsule, like it's a source of media you can point to, and like that's the 1920s. You know, you could be like the Matrix. That's the 1990s. So it's like these standout pieces of media. You could be like, that was a decade. Let's remember that. Let's study that. It's the same thing with like Tom Sawyer. Like that's the freaking whatever Samuel Clemens was
1800s.
alive. Yeah.
Yeah.
18 whatevers. You know. So that's probably another reason why it was.
That's the hard
so-
R era. That's what they call it.
I wonder. Jeez.
Yeah, look, Michael Deitch says, "Yep, Jake. Several authors would type out novels they admired to be an exercise."
Well, that's kind of like how art teachers would always tell you, well, you need to copy these greats and copy the Mona Lisa. I always hated that. But the idea is you want to put yourself in the mind of this master on what they felt when they were painting this. And to some extent, that does help. But also, if you're just blindly copying, if I just copied a whole comic mindlessly, you're not being taught, well, what are the visual storytelling techniques, and you don't have an instinct about it, and what is the underlying structure, because when you copy, you're just seeing the surface level words, and the result, if there's no further education, is completely useless.
Yeah.
Which is why I didn't like doing it, but yeah.
Yeah. And so the canon, it is like the quote unquote best, and they debate about that. But I don't know if there is that for comics and movies and video games, but there kind of almost could be. You can kind of think of it that way. And like American Pie, The Matrix, Fight Club, and like, you know, any number of movies you can kind of name. Another one's American Psycho, and they'll get like kind of reappraised, and they'll kind of stick around. They get memed a lot. People think about them, talk about them. They'll have those connections with individuals, connections with groups. These kind of movies will start to live on, and some of them, they'll have that charge, and you're like, oh, that is going to stand the test of time. That'll be around in 100 years. You can just feel it. And a lot of times they are just really great. That's like step one, is just make it really good. But yeah.
Here's the thing I wanted to say too, because I recently remember hearing something about The Great Gatsby and how it wasn't a commercial success when it came out, and that F. Scott Fitzgerald made almost no money on it. And the reason it was reinvigorated is because World War II, the soldiers got the book to read, and it got super famous because it was reading material that the soldiers got. And I heard, I think like a Instagram reel recently where the author, anytime he would see the book in a store, he would buy it just to try to keep the book alive, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
and like a need or a want for it up. It's crazy. That's very similar to what happened with what's that famous Christmas movie that Jimmy Stewart's in?
Yeah. What the fuck is that one called?
Miracle on 34th Street. That was not a success, and it went into public domain. TV stations in like this the 70s would just play it on repeat, and because it was free to play, everybody would watch it because it was
Yeah.
always on TV during that time. So just in the zeitgeist, It's a Wonderful Life. Sorry, It's a Wonderful Life just bolstered because it was available for everyone to watch. And that goes back to Irene's point. It's like, yeah, if you have that exposure, that's going to supercharge you into being relevant.
Yeah. Those are both very interesting examples. They're kind of tied to, well, the second one especially tied to that technology thing of like TV becoming a thing, them needing more content. It kind of gets a reappraisal because of that. I feel like I use the word reappraisal on my, like, that is pretty necessary because it's, things don't pop off right away a lot of times. There has to be some weird, which is, that actually is nice. I think that can make us all, because then we're like, it could still happen to us.
Well, that's
I- you know,
definitely
I-
true. Oh,
Yeah.
that was the entire.
If you got a point,
It's,
I can wait. Go on.
Well, yeah, I was just going to agree. I never have points, guys, but I have some experience of putting work out on the internet and thinking nobody gave a shit, and years later, out of the blue, someone would ask what happened to that comic. Like, wasn't this, that never finished? Like, I want to read it. So that was honestly very heartening, and that was a lesson that even if you think no one is paying attention, even if something isn't an instant success, someone out there might care. And if you just continue, maybe if you hammer it and have faith that what you're creating is something good, of course you have to make sure it's good first, but without the backing of Hollywood or some larger apparatus, which is all of our situations, it just takes time. It just takes maybe drawing it for 30 years like Berserk, and then that perseverance will grab people's attention. That's all.
Was
Yeah.
that someone saying to you that there was one they thought they wished it was still going, or was that one you remembered?
No, so I was actually trying to find an old website, and so I searched an old comic I was doing. I just Googled it, and I found like a Reddit forum. It wasn't huge. It was like a couple of people. They're like, "What happened to this comic?" Which was nice, and like I thought nobody was reading it, but you never know. So yeah, sometimes it just takes time to find success.
Yeah, I kind
Yeah. That with that too, and this plays into a lot of stuff. But it's like the new versus the old, and new, it has a luster, but it's kind of overrated. I think new is definitely overrated, and so you got to think of that too when you're creating something. There'll be a period where it has that luster of being new, and that's an opportunity. But that will pass, and you still have an opportunity to like get your stuff out there. So.
I think if stuff pops off straight away, it'll just end up being like flash in the pan. I kind of have a theory where like the longer you wait, like the longer you work on something and wait until it reaches that tipping point, the more longevity it'll have after that tipping point. So it's like you'd almost hope things don't pop off straight away. Like you want to be able to have the opportunity to build up like a catalog first, or some weight or some momentum behind it, so that like when it does tip, it goes big.
Oh, by the way, this reminds me is speaking of the Western canon or canon, is one way to define it is if we met aliens and we get to hand them a DVD of like some stuff to watch to get our whole vibe as humans, what's going to go on it. So that's like a good way to think of it. And like, hitting that level is hard. And how you even get that, it happens kind of naturally with these weird stories, and fate and luck plays all into it. But one thing you can always do is stick to your guns and make sure it's good and that kind of stuff. But yeah, so this slide is about how do you pass the test of time. And one that came up as I was kind of writing this is if your story serves in a way, like serves society, and a way that can be is like if it's documenting history or like something that kind of happened, which is kind of like the first story or like that. Fairy tales, legends, myths. If it kind of is like useful, if it's like purposeful, whatever that means, and it can just be like really entertaining, then that's fine. But a lot of that, I'm wondering like as far as serving, like when we were talking about The Matrix and Fight Club, like they're serving as a time capsule is like a pretty important fun thing for a piece of art to do, to become like the representative of that time. And then I wrote down provoke, but I don't even know because that's kind of related to propaganda, and that's more like the flash in the pan that Hype Wizard might be talking about. Like your story can provoke and you'll get like a reaction, but it won't provoke society over and over again. You know, society changes, so it might die down. If you could add to the canon, which would kind of mean like how do you get on that list of what we give to aliens? You got to make something good. You got to get lucky. Things that could happen to help it get up there is reappraisals, sequels. Sequels will kind of create a reappraisal situation. Adaptations will, switching mediums, becoming a movie, all that stuff helps. And then the question is, should the artist be conscious of this and set it as a goal? Like, I want to make something that will stand the test of time. What do you guys think about that? Do you think about that at all? Or
Yes, and yes.
yeah.
I think we should set out for that goal.
My approach to making something that stands the test of time is make something that definitely hasn't been done yet. Do a really good job at it, but do such a specific job at it that no one can recreate it or ape it. That's like my personal thing of how to make like a thing that you can't be redone, hasn't been done, can't be redone.
I think I don't consciously think about, well, I wanted to make something that has never been done before, because I do believe that a lot of great works, it's not because it has a so-called high concept. That means a very understandable, like, woo, it's like, I don't know, capybaras in space, like easily understandable.
Whoa.
And that's, no, oh my god, mind blown, I know. But
you might be onto something with that.
Yeah. That's my next comic. But that's not these immediately attention grabbing concepts aren't the key. It's more about having a strong core to the story, and that whatever that message or that core being true to the creator, and that sincerity and that thoroughness, being thorough with the creation and being sincere with it, I think almost matters more than being completely original. And maybe because if a creator makes a story that is sincere and they mean everything they say and they thought about it to the best of their ability, that's the originality. So I think that is the best approach. And at the same time, I think it's that kind of commitment necessitates a desire to create something that stands the test of time. And you might not know the answer. It's impossible to know because this is about, well, after we die, will this story survive? But I think the best bet at creating something that will survive is to approach it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, based on kind of what we've been talking about is if you have like the accidental time capsule because you made something so good that it sort of serves also as a time capsule, even if it's not like, oh, this is what life was like. Like it could be a sci-fi story. Like this is what sci-fi was like when they were writing it in that era.
Yeah.
That is like a okay way to approach it that can kind of get you those results. I wonder if there's a way like approaching it, because it could be too vague or it could almost lead you astray if it's like the wrong focus. If you're like, I'm going to make something so timeless.
Yeah.
Because like what Jake's saying, like in a way, the ultimate timeless story could be like the ultimate generic truth story, like kind of maybe boring or whatever.
I think like as creators, we should really study the evergreen stories that have been put out there, especially in our medium, like focus on ingesting that evergreen stuff and the stuff that has stood the test of time. But that I think like you're saying, Narwhal, you as a creator could fall into the trap of perfection and being like really focused on this has to be the thing that stands the test of time because it's so important to me as a person. And I think we've seen creators of the past fall into that, like Jodorowsky's Dune, like when he was trying to do that, because he was just putting so much money trying to get the highest, biggest names in the thing, and it just fell apart because it was too much. He was focusing on it,
Mhm.
and you don't want to fall into that trap. Like, I think studying the things that have done that and try to figure out why has this stood
Yeah.
the test of time. And I think when it boils down to it, Jake has the spot on thing of like putting those truths into your story and your project.
Yeah. And I've wondered if like trite things can stand the test of time because they can be so charming. But I'm trying to think of an example. Like
Like what do you mean by trite?
Well, like just anything, but one example might be like I think of like it as like Hercules or Xena. Like I love those shows. They're not high art. They're like not the greatest by any means. They sort of haven't stood the test of time that good. People still know them and stuff, but they might have a reappraisal at some point. But they're kind of like charming and trite. They're like not trying super hard. they're not like, oh, this is Hercules. We're gonna make the best Hercules story ever. We're gonna enter the Western canon. It has to be the best. It's so amazing. We're gonna blah blah. It's like just tell a fucking Hercules story. We're gonna get that guy to be the actor. They're like, but he's a terrible actor. Like we don't care.
But it's not generic. This is the thing. I think I feel like I'm getting at something in my head. Like when people say, "Oh, a generic truth story," or like it's one of them. If it ends up being like general and generic, I don't think it ever has any chance of really being. I think a lot of these things that connect, they're really specific in how they've distilled. That might even be what a vision is. Very specific choices that a very particular piece of media. Like, what is there anything that we think is great where they haven't made very particular specific choices instead of been like whatever, you know what I mean? Like even down to art direction, like dialogue, characters, world building. I think it's when people get really specific.
Yeah. You know what movie looks specific that's coming up is Trap, the new M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong movie that I
Don't spoil it for me. Don't spoil it. I have not seen the ending of the trailer.
That's so funny. Do you always say it like that? Shyamalan Ding Dong?
I didn't quote
the name
that.
right and just added words.
That's his real name. We're Mengele affecting it.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you gonna say something, Irene?
Oh no, I was just making fun of Shamalama Ding Dong.
Okay. Arthur C. Clarke wrote about a concept, comm satellites, before it became a reality. If your vision is clear enough to come true in the future, I guess you reach some test of time. Yeah, that's cool. And yeah, what Jake's saying too, I can see it if you almost conceive of it as you're not even necessarily trying to compete on that weird plane of the best ever, the Western canon. It's like a big fish in a small pond kind of thing. Like you're just trying to do this little idiosyncratic thing that you love and do it really well. That would definitely pay off. Like that would be a lot of times how things would pass the test of time. And sometimes how things pass the test of time, we're kind of getting off the topic of the slides here, but like this is something I wonder about too, is like, can something be so bad that it passes the test of time? And maybe that's true too.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Even like The Room, it's highly specific. You know what I mean? It's not just general. He made lots of very specific choices when making that film.
What will people think about The Room in like 200 years if they find it buried, like the DVD buried in a like?
They'll become high art. They'll be like,
they'll be like.
I understand the appeal of The Room. I think it would be made fun of for many years to come, but I don't think it's one of those things I'll ever remember 200 years from now.
Well, see in 200 years.
So, what you mean by specific? Do you mean having a theme and sticking to it, or a message and sticking to it?
I think it's being very particular about what you're creating.
Right. So having a vision.
Having
Yeah.
an answer for
No,
every
I'm
Yeah,
saying
question.
that.
something
That's
that's
what I
unique
think
to
having
you.
a vision is being really particular. Like maybe
Yeah.
if someone is like, I make stuff and I don't really have a vision, start trying to be particular. You're very particular about Fiendish, down to the like millimeter. You know what I mean? I'm really particular about my stuff, even though it's presented as like, here's a silly idea, but it's very specific and very particular.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. That's what I mean by commit to your work. That's more if you set out with I just want to create something that's popular and I want to make something that stands test of time. So therefore, theoretically, I'm speaking in the shoes of someone else. I'm going to just find out what everybody likes and copy what is successful. That's not the right way to go about it. The right way to go about it is by being sincere, true to yourself, and being particular. Yeah.
Yeah, these on the So Bad It's Good, these are all particular. But yeah, Plan 9 from Outer Space, Robot Monster have maintained a significant space in the zeitgeist, far more than a movie like Boys Town. I don't even know what Boys Town is, but yeah, that's how much.
On the
Speaking
north
of
side of Chicago.
Yeah.
Oh. Speaking of sci-fi, you made me think about Ender's Game because we were talking about dated and how some sci-fi can date themselves through how they describe future technology. But I remember, so first of all, Ghost in the Shell, which is early 2000s anime. I think rewatching that's still, even though it's harder to do when it's visual sci-fi, because especially if it's near futuristic, because it's like we're going to see this within our lifetimes, and if it's just we're now in the 2020s and this was made in the early 2000s and this isn't how things look now. But I think the concepts were so spot on. The idea of a cyber brain and the worries about the internet and having a losing your unique identity because of our interconnectivity through the internet, those themes still pan out today. I think that's why rewatching Ghost in the Shell, I think it's still relevant. And as far as Ender's Game, a little different. The way that Ender's Game I think is still relevant is different. Of course, the themes are not actually tied. Well, it's sci-fi. It's about war and it's about what makes it, like what is a sentient life and all that kind of stuff. But I remember the way the technology was described was very non-specific. It was just, here's a screen. This is my desktop, like, and no details. And it was about what it did, but no specifics about how it's built. And I think that helped it feel believable and timeless. And even something like Dune, that has a little more leeway because we're never going to live to see that time period that many centuries into the future. And it's so sci-fi, it feels like magic, right? So I think there's a way of doing sci-fi in a way that doesn't date it. It's by kind of not being too specific with the technology and focusing on the themes.
Oh, you know, when I say specific, I don't mean over-explained.
Oh, yeah. I do agree on that. I was thinking about the technology aspect of it specifically.
Like you could be very particular in how in the gaps that you leave open for people to project into, right? Like if you don't try and over-explain the tech.
Yeah, and even
Mm-hmm.
and even Ender's Game, well, the writing, the prose style is particular. Even Ghost in the Shell, the technology doesn't look like what we have now, but there's a visual style to it, so it's still particular in its own way. It's branding, right?
There's a language and a system. I do think that's a way of bringing particularity into your stuff, is like creating systems and languages, not just like an actual language or a magic system, but like I do this in everything I do. There's always a language to design elements for a certain group or type of people. You know, that seems really obvious, but like there's like a language to the architecture, and there's a reason for it, and there's like a way that you design the characters that live in a certain area to be cohesive with that architecture. That's really particular stuff. And someone who doesn't have a vision probably wouldn't be particular about that stuff. They'd probably just be like, just do some general thing that works.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Creek.
Yeah, yeah. Like when we say like if with movies, there's like work for hire directors, and if they make kind of sometimes bad movies, would be like they're a hack, and they're just making these hacky movies that are just kind of getting by to make money. It's more of a
Yeah, they're
business.
just cash grabs.
Yeah, and these movies do not like stick around. Like they leave your consciousness the second you leave the theater or whatever, and you literally can't remember them. You know, like that's why we can't name them because they like die.
Yeah.
We can't name any of the bad stuff because it didn't work. So we can't
Yeah.
remember it, literally.
Yeah, that's how I feel like a lot of comics were in the 90s.
Yeah. I'm
That-
curious about that with comics. So one thing is timeline wise, like I don't know if this counts as technology or what, but society wise, it's like the golden age, the silver age. Like I don't know if they're good. I don't know if anyone reads those. I don't know if they're dying, but it feels like modern comics kind of started in the 80s. You know, where we know them, where they're a little more quote unquote cinematic.
yeah.
They don't have as many thought bubbles, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and, like in the 90s it really felt like especially in the image age, a lot of the books that were coming out, they had no vision for them. They were almost like, here is your opportunity to make a bunch of money. We need this book by
Yeah,
next week.
generic team go, cyber
Right.
team go. Has to have
Yeah, and
cyber in the title.
Right. And like as much as I love Jim Lee, I thought a lot of his Wildcats designs were very generic,
Go. Yeah.
where he wasn't a crutch, but he had that pedigree behind him when he was working at Marvel on X-Men. It's like, oh yeah, you had 3 generations of people that designed these characters, and here's your chance to put your wrapper on them, and you get 90s X-Men. It's like, oh, this shit is awesome. And then when now you're going off on your own and you want to make that next X-Men, it's all splash pages and all this stuff, and there's not really a specific vision behind it. And there's no, like with a lot of the stuff we're talking about, a lot of this material has been made into films and TV and stuff. There's not a lot of those 90s comics that have been translated into other media.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder, like, someone might have tried, they start reading it, and they're like, this is trash. Can't do it. Can't adapt it.
Yeah, well, that was the right place at the right time, where all of the spotlight was on them, and man, kids were buying the hell out of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that it almost doesn't stand the test. I say does not stand the test.
Yeah. And
Blood.
speaking of, like, does it serve as a time capsule? 90s X-Men Jim Lee so much, like, does. But yeah, Wildcats Jim Lee does not. Nobody associates it.
Right.
Nobody feels that. Yeah, that's interesting. And that's just a reinterpretation of the X-Men. He just puts his spin on it, is what made it so iconic.
Right. I mean, even Romy says they didn't look at Image back then. They all kind of blended together. Yeah, there's 100 of titles from then that the comic book or manga reader today would be like, I've never heard of that. Especially like the adolescent, like the teenage, the late teens, if they're reading any comics, it's probably going to be manga. They don't know what the hell Wildcats is,
Yeah. Yeah, there's a certain amount of those books floating around, but I don't know, they just eventually just find their way to the boxes, kind of sit there.
Yeah, it's interesting what did break out, right? Like Spawn obviously had a movie, had an animated series. It's been in multiple video games. Like it was in Soul Calibur 15 years ago. It was in Mortal Kombat 2 years ago. So Spawn definitely broke out of that indie space and the creator-owned stuff. And then from then on, the next big one to break out was Darkness had a video game, but the next big one to break out in indie comics from the Image area was Walking Dead, and that was like...
Yeah, that was recent, it feels like.
Yeah, for sure. That
10
was,
years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and real quick, Salieri versus Mozart. Apparently, according to the movie, I wonder how much this is propaganda, but they're like, yeah, nobody listened to Mozart in his time, and he was just middling. Salieri was like the big guy who worked with the kings, made all the money. And then once Mozart died 40 years later, everyone listened to Mozart. Nobody knew Salieri at all. It's definitely true if you go, like, I don't know, and maybe it happened right away is the thing. I'm like, is this propaganda? Like, Mozart might have been great from the beginning, but it's definitely true that Mozart, you literally know his music now. That's another one that just filters to your brain. They could play the melody and we know it. We're like, fuck, I've heard that. That's awesome. That's freaking Mozart. Salieri, he's got nothing. He's got nothing.
Yeah, I think that's similar to Poe, like Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
with his work.
How did he get reappraised? Did you know that story?
I don't know.
Me
But
neither.
Obviously, he's very famous for dying poor, but he wrote so much and he worked so much too, like for different publications and stuff. And then the most famous he was is after his death.
A lot of artists are like that. Van Gogh.
Yeah. Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. It's kind of a trope for artists to die poor and then get famous afterwards, which is slightly disturbing. But
So that's one way to pass the test of time is to die.
Well, if, you can think if you're like a true artist, if you're still creating even though you're not famous, like it's almost like you're probably more likely to be creating real art compared to like I'm making YouTube thumbnails that fit the algorithm, right? So like it actually makes a lot of logical sense that artists with great work would only be recognized after they die because they're the kind of example of those people that like they kept going at it forever and no one gave a shit, but they kept going at it. And
that makes sense to me. That's funny.
Passion.
Yeah. Because it is like the people who get recognized right away, they might be making terrible trash that will not stand the test of time.
Being recognized could make them create trash. There could have been great art in their future, but becoming famous younger made them plateau. Or maybe they focused on the wrong thing. Like maybe getting fame and wealth ruined their art. Whereas like the person who was just like puttering away in their shed for 1,000,000 years, they really got it. They got to the core of who they were with their art.
Well, you have to realize too that the modern age compared to back then, now everything's much more accessible. Like, Poe, I don't know how many, people were looking at his work every week, in the newspaper in, Boston or whatever. But people in France or China probably never even heard of him until decades down the line after he died. So, but now it's kind of, you probably won't have that anymore. You won't have the random artists that no one's heard of until 20 years after they died because information happens so fast. Like I could look at artwork from some guy in Svatgalia or whatever the hell right now.
Mongolia.
Yeah.
Real place.
So
I don't know if we'll have that anymore. We'll have like, I just discovered this guy's Instagram page and he's dead. And look at how awesome his art is. I want to buy all this shit.
You know something too? A lot of these artists that have made something that stands the test of time, it kind of feels like, at least a lot of them, it feels like it's one thing. So they'll make like 100 things and then one thing will stand the test of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be a big thing that takes them like 20 years or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But that's interesting. So how to fail? This one I don't even know, but I'll just read what I wrote. If it doesn't serve, like can't serve as a time capsule, it doesn't add to the canon, meaning it's not great. You wouldn't give it to aliens to represent your culture.
I don't get what adding to the canon is, by the way.
That's where you would give it to aliens.
No, but what does adding to the canon mean? Telling a story that hasn't been told yet? Like, what does it mean?
It means you have to make something so good that we would want to give it to aliens. It's hard. Nobody can do it.
I would say like that's the zeitgeist, right? Like
So like Matrix?
Right.
Like
like
adding
the
to
Matrix.
history. Like this is
Like the
top
You're talking
quality.
about the Western canon, which is they're teaching this in schools 100 years later.
Yeah, that too. That for literature, but I kind of
Like,
think
well,
it agrees. It
So it
applies
adds
to
to the
Sorry,
the,
Phil.
story of our culture in general. Is that what it is?
yeah, like Citizen
Yeah.
Kane.
yeah, yeah. Citizen
Forrest
Kane
Gump,
definitely. The Godfather.
Porky's.
If
Those
some
stuff that
yeah,
make
if someone
me-
was like, you got to go to an island and you can only take 10 books, 10 movies, and 10 comics with you. What are you taking? Go. That's like your
So-
canon.
So
You're creating
something
your
highly
canon.
parodyable.
Yeah, Animal House.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
What? You haven't seen Animal House?
Oh my god.
I think that's
Yeah.
very American.
Red. Read books, people.
Animal
I've
House
read
is
like
a good
5
movie.
books.
Nobody reads books anymore.
Not Animal Farm. What about Animal Farm? Which is better, Animal Farm or Animal House?
Animal Farm.
That's a canon question. That's good. Debate the canon.
Wizard of Oz.
Blues Brothers.
Wait,
Blues
I got
Brothers
that mixed up
2000
too. I'm
or
the idiot.
original? Yeah.
What?
What? I don't know.
What is that?
If something doesn't ring true from era to era, what if something kind of doesn't ring true? I can think of like that makes me think of like propaganda. The main propaganda thing I can think of where we're kind of in this era now is straw man type stuff where, yeah, like you'll see a movie and if it's like, if it's like a husband is an idiot and the wife is a genius, or that kind of stuff where there's a lot of that happening. There's a plane outside my window, but
We hear it.
Get
that
on.
stuff is like very dated in a bad way it will not age well and it just will kind of die. I think that kind of like you can call that propaganda, but there's examples of propaganda that are good, which is weird. That's a
Yeah,
sort
like
of
those
controversial
old
thing to say,
Disney
but-
those World War II Mickey Mouse Disney.
Death
Yeah.
Euro Space.
yeah. Top Gun was like
Donald
propaganda,
Nixon.
the original. It got funded by the government. Their idea was the Air Force recruits were down. They wanted the numbers to go up, so they decided to make a movie to make it look really cool.
That's
And
cool.
these-
Yeah, I love playing beach volleyball shirtless.
Michael Dietrich says the porn canon will be hotly debated. That's the true canon of society. That it's like secret undercurrent and doesn't get talked about inside society.
And what
But then
porn do
obviously
they give
there's,
the
like,
aliens?
The high concept arms race of the porn canon.
Yeah, they're like, "What? You watch Debbie Does Dallas too? You have it on 16 mm film? Oh my God, we have to take notes. We have to touch tips."
I do think if you want to make some, I'm linking this like adding to the canon to making something parodyable. I think that's part of if you can replicate it, if there's ideas in it that you can make twists on.
I would
Okay.
agree. I would say anything that The Simpsons has parodied in the last
Oh yeah,
30 years
point.
is part of the canon.
totally.
Mm.
Exclude the last 15 years though.
Because it's
Yeah.
like people who grew up in America have to get the joke because it's just
Right.
there. They just
Yeah.
they like understand it kind of.
And I don't think a Tarantino film, a recent one, has been parodyable. And even though they're great, I don't think they really became canonical.
Yeah, that's not a bad point. Although I think maybe the latest one I can picture lots of people making like parodying it.
Kill Bill is
Close.
super parodyable.
Yeah, but the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like when he flamethrowers the girl at the end, like Simpsons could make fun of or like parody that.
I don't feel like I don't feel like people would get what it was if it was parodied. People would be like,
Oh, yeah, good
a
point, good
flamethrower,
point.
right?
Yeah.
Now,
no,
I
yeah.
think Pulp Fiction is at this point because Pulp Fiction is pretty original.
Well, that they had an itchy and scratchy bit
Right.
where they were doing.
They did. You're right.
Yeah,
But like his other stuff, like Kill Bill, the newest one, they themselves are taking from so much of pop culture that he loves. It is a parody of a Bruce Lee film,
Yeah.
of all this other stuff that he loves. So
Yeah. So
Like, anyone can parody the Matrix by like freezing a frame and spinning the camera around the
oh
character.
yeah, it gets memed. Memes are like part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2000 to 2005, that was in every one movie that came out every summer through those
Yeah.
years. Like,
Yeah, that is cool, that movie. So I wrote down provoke, but I don't even know. I don't know how I feel about that. If that's even, but that's something. What do you guys think? Is provoking?
provoking,
Is that
I
necessary
think on some level, it doesn't have to
provocation.
be controversial, so to speak. It could just. I think it does have to be provoking in some way. It could be
Well,
thought provoking. It could be make people reflect on their era, right?
Yeah.
it should be thought provoking. I think like Matrix is so thought provoking. You know,
Yeah.
it's like life itself.
Well, I mean,
Simulation.
so if provoking is just making people go, "Oh yeah," instead of provoking being like, "You can't do that." Like, there's two different types of provoking.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I think thought provoking is what you want.
Yeah.
Like
The you
yeah,
can't
like
do that does not guarantee tested time because that's
Sure.
just the modern society that will move on and it will be forgotten that oh, it was so edgy at the time when it came out. That's like Hitchcock. It was so gnarly when that came out, dude. So gnarly. And now we watch it, we're like, what the fuck? This is like a TV for kids. This is
Yeah, like
bullshit.
Arrival was thought provoking. Children of Men was thought provoking. That did make you think, oh shit, what it like.
Yeah, that's kind of fun and it does
Hadn't
stick
thought
around.
about that.
Children of Men almost fell down the memory hole. It's like kind of a classic, but no one talks about it. No one rewatches it, even though it's good, whatever.
I want to rewatch it, but I never do.
Yeah, it's weird. It was really good, but you don't really feel incentivized to rewatch it.
Yeah, that's one that might be due for a reappraisal at some point. People be like, oh, wow, it's friggin' Air Force outside my window.
But yeah, we hear it. I think it was such a cool concept, but yeah, Narwhal, what did you do? But the characters weren't that memorable, if I dare say. Maybe that's just my memory of it.
Yeah. And then the bad luck, good luck. I think this is real. How real, I don't know. Like as far as like if the SJW thing is true, that like that lost history of things that it's kind of a injustice that some great art has been buried, and we don't know. But the thing about that is there's some that's maybe gone forever, and that is kind of sad to think about that it might be out there. But I think this next slide is about it. It's the role of the audience. There can be like pickers through the stuff, the cultural searchers. This is like a fun role as a audience. You could call these people hipsters, but they serve a purpose. And they go looking for stuff that no one else knows about and try and bring it back for others. So, look what I found. Nobody's heard of this one. Have you guys seen this one? Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh my God, that's sweet.
This slide is just about, hey, audience, this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
But I do think, yes, we need you. But I think it comes naturally if a work is really good and people like it. That's what fandom is. You're going to start telling people, just recommending this book or this movie without being asked.
Yeah. Yep. And yeah, the commentary thing, like you can find like the zeitgeist has been mentioned a few times by Phil too. That's a good word. And like you can find the stuff that's like kind of catching that and kind of picking up steam to the point where things that'll feel like they might be in the process of reappraisal or they will be reappraised later. But one is like American Psycho. Like there's just a lot of YouTube content talking about American Psycho.
So good.
Yeah, that's like a lot of these movies, but that's almost, especially in this modern YouTube era, that's like a stat that you want to look at. It's like, so you got your thing. So what is your thing? Say it takes, if it's a comic book, graphic novel, it takes 4 hours to read it. How many hours of commentary exists on YouTube about it? Yeah. And you want that number as high as possible. And if your ratio is like 4 to 400, so 100x, you're really getting in that zone of like the zeitgeist.
Well, to create that, you put a bunch of elements that have a lot of gaps between them, but you compose the elements in a way where links can be drawn really easily. Like that's why there's like 10 billion freaking hours of commentary on things like Elden Ring and all those Souls-like games, because they just have little sprinklings of things in the descriptions of all the items and little lines here and there, and there's huge gaps for commentators to draw links between.
Yeah.
And I think that's what can get your thing discussed about, like lore
Provokes.
videos. It's because there's a lot to be filled in, a lot to speculate about.
Yeah. So I wrote here the audience of one. That is like something like a romantic idea of it, where it's like, imagine in 300 years, our work has been forgotten, but one person carries the light. One person carries a copy of our book through the wasteland and is reading it, and enjoying it.
The Book of
That's
Eli.
like- yeah. That's true. Like, that feels good. And that's like some of the actual logistics of it is like, how many books can you put in print? How much can you make their like longevity last? Like Jake was saying, like print them on paper that won't rot or whatever. That stuff like totally is like something that if you actually want to stand the test of time, you want to get as many books in circulation that are of a good quality. And then you're kind of out there. It'll kind of happen. The magic will happen.
Yeah, if you really want to get your thing known about, print 10 million copies of it on like indestructible hemp paper, and then just deliver it to every single address. Like,
actually, that might backfire somehow. I don't even know, but
no matter what, people would know about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you could look, doesn't even have to be on good quality paper. If you were super rich and like your kid made a fucking comic, you're like, okay, I'm gonna print a few million of these and just mail them to random addresses all over the world. Like, the world would know about it day one. It doesn't even have to be on the internet. Like, it would be a weird marketing thing.
That's why I always leave my comic books under the windshield wipers of cars when I go to basketball games.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, great idea.
Yeah, the your boy Zach Fantasy, he's like, I want to make this book that you will find in a truck on the floor of a truck stop bathroom. And you pick it up.
I don't know what that means or what.
No, we were talking about this though, where that ties into digital distribution, right? How, we all want to make money with our work, but sometimes, well, no, I was talking about it with somebody else regarding digital distribution. Sometimes you have to make free content to make content that generates income, because right now, especially as creators that don't have a large platform and we're not rich and we can't afford to do what Phil just described, you just have to get our work in front of people and do free work to show them this is what my work is about. And then once they're hooked, then they're going to actually consume the stuff that it costs,
you need
money.
this Saturday morning cartoon to sell the toys.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You need like a free thing that's put out on a regular basis that can entrain people towards your IP, especially nowadays. Where it almost becomes habitual. And the truck stop bathroom thing, that is what happens with magazines like Shonen Jump in Japan. People will buy them, read them on the train, and leave them on the train, and someone else will just pick them up and read them.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
They're printed on dirt cheap paper, but the story's there, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. Real quick, Simply Green, they're talking about Children of Men, and he goes, yeah, good film, but not particularly watchable. And he might be meaning like rewatchable. Like, you watch it and you like it, but you don't really feel compelled to rewatch it. That's something, I didn't put that on the slides, but I was like, rewatchability is totally different from quality. Like, you can watch some of the best movies ever, and you're like, yep, only watching that once. And things will have a better chance with these than when they have that high rewatchability. That's kind of how they one path to kind of entering the canon that way. I can think of some examples of movies like that. Like The Thing is like that, like very rewatchable, very fun. Yeah. And new versus old, I feel like that's kind of it's kind of a fun little dichotomy here, where new, for some reason it obviously wins, but old is cool. It's cool to look through old shit and try and find good stuff. I've been enjoying doing that with movies and books. And there's no guarantee that what's new is better. And especially the 50s, 60s sci-fi, that magazine scene. I've been legit looking into some of that and reading some of that. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, and then I do the little comic of this guy. He goes, look, Gertrude, I purchased a snuff film from the estate sale of the Marquis.
Huh?
The me Marquis.
Marquis.
Of the
We
Marquis.
say marquee. Marquee.
Quiz.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty dark.
I
Yep.
thought that was an 8mm reference.
Yep. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yep. That's the end.
Yeah.
Yay! That was a good one.
How
Da-da-da.
very provoking.
Woo!
Good job.
Yeah.
Well
Yeah, that was good
done.
timing. 2 hours. So we'll enter the second half, go like an hour, and then probably end it. But I'm gonna
Oh,
run
hey,
and
this
get
was
a little.
60th.
Yeah, I'm gonna run and get a
Turn the air
little.
on.
Yeah, I'm gonna maybe turn my fan on. I'm maybe go get it like a little
You should
energy bar.
jump in just a tub of ice. Seems like a great idea.
Yeah.
He would do that and die.
No.
I bet he would.
Yeah.
I bet it would be like a freak event where his body temperature drops way too quickly because of all the creatine or something.
I hadn't thought
Oh,
of that. Yeah, don't
Yeah.
do that. Maybe. Might be a bad idea. Anyway.
Okay. I'll be right back, and then in the meantime, this officially counts as the middle.
I assume you have no clips.
Wait.
Ugh.
Wait. Oh yeah, there's that. Hold on.
Maybe I should get something. I've been trying to eat healthy. Should I go get an apple? Apple.
Audience, I'm getting nothing. I'm gonna be here for you. I'm gonna hold the show together. Whilst Irene
Fine.
gets
I'll
an
stay
apple.
as well.
No,
I
go get
guess
your apple.
Phil.
Go get that apple.
Phil just left without saying anything. So
Well, Phil knew that there was going to be like a little bit of preamble before Norwell actually left, and he probably thought he could go away and come back in time.
he's taking a shower right now.
Probably.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Mm.
I'm gonna be in so much pain tomorrow. That was an hour
I
of
don't
biking
know.
after being sedentary for like 6 months.
I don't know how you do the bike for an hour. Do you listen to music or watch something, or do you just think?
Yeah. Oh no, I watched something. Yeah, I just put something on YouTube, and then that's why. If I work out, I prefer. I know you have to stay steady with it, but I rather work out a couple of times a week and just go really hard. So that's why I just.
Well, there
Bike
is
for,
an
like, a whole
element to like
hour.
losing, like burning calories. You do actually have to be going for a good while. I don't know if it's even going for an hour before you actually, like, your heart rate has to be above a certain amount. But like, yeah,
Oh.
you're gonna be paralyzed in the morning.
I'll be in so much pain. No, my thing, it's funny because there is no science to it. I just hate having to wash my hair. So I line my workouts with my hair washing days because I'm going to get all sweaty and washing look at how much hair I have. This is a pain. So that's the actual reason.
Like,
I'm
just
just
wash
gonna
my hair. Might as well freaking.
Yeah,
might
no,
as well
seriously.
go
I'm
for
like,
it.
okay, I'm just gonna work out for 2 hours straight and then, like wash all this and then we're good.
Yeah, like you should definitely eat a lot of protein after doing an hour's worth of, because that would have broken a lot of the muscle fibers in your legs. You know what I mean? So,
Oh, I did eat some yogurt and I should get more.
did you have the Greek yogurt? Did you try it?
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
I put blueberries in it, of course, so it was good. It's kind of boring plain, but it's healthy. So, guys, I'm trying to eat healthy. I'm trying so hard. I actually haven't ate out at all. I went to get Smoothie King earlier today, but that's it. For a week now, I've just been cooking. I'm so proud of me.
Well done. Congratulations on all the steaks you've cooked.
I have cooked a lot of steaks and fish.
Yeah, I've
I'm so proud of me.
I've been doing a roast chicken nearly every day. This is the first day in like a week I haven't made a freaking roast chicken. And every time I always think I'll get a whole chicken and I'll Phil's dipping in and out of his fucking casting couch.
What is he doing? Yeah, what the fuck is
He's trying
that?
to switch to a more comfortable setting for the rest of the show.
Like
But,
the cameras from the floor or something.
I always think I'll have this roast chicken. I'll eat half of it today, and I'll eat half of it tomorrow. I always end up eating a whole freaking chicken.
Ah, the whole chicken. My God.
But it's
Holy
so
shit.
good. I really wish I had a chicken in the oven right now, and I could just eat a whole damn freaking chicken.
Chicken boy.
Wow.
Hmm.
That's a lot of chicken.
Yeah, but it's not a lot of calories because it's just basically meat.
That's what
I don't know what is
I'm
happening.
learning. Just let it. What the fuck are you doing? This is creepy.
No, this is my new setup.
Well, I
Okay.
wish the mic was closer to your mouth in the new setup.
It's not.
I wish it
Yo.
was.
Sound like shit.
Phil, you need one of the when I did Let's Plays, you need one of these things. It's like the microphone arm, and you can have it by the side of the sofa and you can swing it in.
Yeah, I got one of those.
Doesn't care.
Or you can just get a shotgun mic like
Yeah.
mine.
Let me see if I can do it. Hold on.
Oh, he's gonna do it.
I'm gonna lie down on the floor for the second half.
I just don't know how long my mic cord goes.
You're dead now, aren't you? Wait, everyone's back. Now you can go get the apple.
This might work.
Okay. I'll be right back.
So how was everyone's week?
We already talked about that.
Yeah. What are you? What do you call it? One of them on the spectrum or something? You
Yeah, we
socially
were-
awkward?
You one of them retards?
Yeah.
Tarts.
You reading
They
from
were
a script? Whenever you get super shy, you just have a note card of what to say.
Yeah. I'm too lazy for that. I would just I really do you know I actually want to be in a social situation with someone now where it's like they have to be with me and maybe they don't know me that well, like it's a new person, and I want to keep repeating the same fucking questions once an hour or something, like as
Yeah.
if they're new questions, and see what it does to them mentally.
It would be funny to try and pretend to be on the spectrum with someone.
Oh,
I feel
just
like I
fully
might
pretend
accidentally
to
do
be-
that.
You don't have to
Wow, that-
pretend no.
Yeah.
You know, speaking of on the spectrum, I didn't bring this up before. No, wait, did I say about that woman that kept on asking me questions on the plane? I think I did.
Yeah.
That was basically the reverse of that. That was, how quick can you make someone put their headphones on and not be rude to you? In a social situation.
Not quick.
So is the mask in the canon, in the Western canon,
Like the Jim Carrey or the comic or both?
the Jim Carrey?
Yeah, good question. I kind of feel like it's not, but Ace Ventura maybe a little bit more.
I mean, in the 90s it was.
Yeah,
It was
and it
one of
is
the
a pretty
highest
good time
grossing
capsule.
films Of that
Yeah.
period.
Is Jumanji in the canon?
Yeah. Guess so.
It's a good time capsule, but
Yeah. Well, they made all those sequels, those dumb sequels.
oh yeah, that's true.
Was
It's
there
Robin
actual
Williams.
sequels to the Jim Carrey era stuff, or was that just the animated show?
Well, they did do a movie called Son of the Mask, starring Jamie Foxx. It was total.
I
tripe.
never wanted to watch that. I did
it.
The cover for that film was so unsightly. It made me never want to watch it, and I loved The Mask.
How do I sound?
Yeah, it
Good.
would sound great.
Fucking top. All right, I did it, boys. We're in there. I'm lounging.
He doesn't actually sound that much better, but you tried.
Nice.
So
Oh my
you might as
god!
well
Come
reward
on,
him.
it's right in front of me.
Pointing down towards your belly.
No, it comes out of the sides here.
Oh, okay.
Right. You want me to do this?
Yeah, the whole time. You need to lean forward the entire time.
No, I'll do this.
This is like Phil's DSP moment. He doesn't
Yes,
think the
fuck
camera's on.
Look at this. I got a psychiatrist. Fucking the mic's right in front of my mouth. We're in there. I think
That's
I'm
not a
gonna.
Rorschach test. That's just some stuff that got caught between the pages of the book. Is Watchmen in the canon
Yes.
Yes.
for normal
Definitely.
people?
For sure.
though?
Yeah.
Look at that.
Really?
Well, it is for comics. It's like almost right at the top. So just I don't know.
If
For
a
normal people,
normie,
comics aren't really.
if a normie is ever like, I want to watch or I want to read a comic, what comic should I read? Watchmen is always one of the in the first sentence, you know.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure for most people it would be they would just say Batman or Superman without even knowing what they
Oh,
are.
I guess, but people that are like, oh, I want to read the best comic.
If they're slightly hipstery,
Dude, you got to read Watchmen, man. My comic shop has this wall right when you walk in. It's like the best sellers of the month that they get from like whatever, not Indie Cron, but Comic Cron, and Watchmen's always on that wall. It's always a top seller because they're always reprinting it as well. So,
you know, if someone hadn't read any comic before and they're like, "What comic should I read?" I would actually be worried of Watchmen boring them to tears.
oh yeah, for sure. That's why you're just
because
like,
of the
don't
panel.
read the comic, just watch the movie.
Yeah. About everything. Don't get into comics. Just watch movies.
They're like comics, but better, right?
Does everybody love my new setup?
Yeah, it's my favorite ever. Of everyone's setup on any of these streams, it's definitely this. It's definitely this fucking seductive.
I love it. What does the chat say?
I
Nothing
can't
yet.
read it. He says, "Phil, please no."
Kingdom
Phil,
Come.
Phil can only afford the B in RGB.
Wait, that's
yeah,
blue.
funny. Yeah.
Oh, because
Yeah.
of the blue. I like that.
This cam girl setup is a little uneasy.
Oh, it's easy.
Yeah, I need to get the sound effect of the sound that plays whenever one of those cam girls gets a donation and start playing it whenever it fills in this mode.
Let me tell you. PhilCam 2.0 is not standing the test of time. I'm glad that I moved the mic over here. This is great. Shit, I'm spilling coconut water on my chest, boys.
Oh, if we have more people, do we have more people watching now than before? Let's see.
I'm rubbing it in.
Less. Cool. Well, if anyone in the audience bought a throbbing package, check your email. I've had 1, 2, 3, 4 people reply, which is great. Because I waited like 2 days with no reply from other people.
Yeah, get to replying. And those of you who bought those previews, leave a review. I did have one that supposedly is lost in the mail. So I had to file a freaking USPS postal missing thing. So now they're looking for it. So dumb.
They go hunt for it.
Yeah, they have to hunt for it. But I heard like if they don't find it in 3 days, they have to refund us. I'm not sure. So
then what do? You go to the printer and say, "Please, sir, can I have another one of these books?" And then you write the number in it.
I know there was only 50 freaking printed.
Mm-hmm.
See, you should have done what I did and printed
I'll
more.
deal with it. Yeah, I thought Adam was going to print a few more, but he only printed 50. But we have a solution if it does come down to it is lost.
Is it called refunding them?
That's part of it.
You know what? Someone selected on Canon not to have theirs signed, and
Yeah.
I accidentally signed their number. And so I had to switch it with a later number, and I was like, fuck. But I left them a note. I put a note in it saying what I did, and then I put a sketch card in there too.
Why didn't you just email and be like, hey man, I already signed this. Do you care? Really? And they would have been like, no, I don't care. And then they would have got the number.
But they have an even better experience now.
Oh, I guess.
And then I'll be like, Jake was so good. I'm going to buy every single thing he ever makes ever now.
Yeah. I'm so
So,
hungry.
an hour, huh?
So what's did you guys watch any movies?
No.
Just the
I didn't
greatest
even
story
watch-
ever told, starring Jesus. And
Sounds
it's
good.
great.
Oh, speaking of Jesus, did you hear Mel Gibson wants to do a Passion 2?
Yeah, I can't wait. I think it'll be
Action, yeah.
great.
Did you hear what it's going to be about?
Yeah. But it's like sort of not all in the Bible. I forget whether the writings it's in, but
He
it takes place over the 3 days when Jesus dies. He arises 3 days later, but in that 3 days, he's in hell organizing a prison break from hell to help everyone.
That sounds so cool.
Is that
Why
what
have
it's
I
like
not
gonna
heard
be?
of this action scene in the Bible?
Yeah, I
I've
know. I
heard of
feel
it.
like it's
Oh, 'cause
not
a
in the Bible.
non-canon part of the Bible, right? It's not
Yeah.
actually. It's like one of those stories. Go
It's
watch
kind of
like a
understood.
Wendigoon.
It's like a different book?
Whatever, Phil.
But that's like why they're going to be calling him Saint Mel, because he's adding to the biblical canon.
Does he like in the Bible when you get to that point it's like, oh yeah, Jesus dies and then there's like a footnote that says see Jesus Satan Killer, the book, buy it at your local store and then come back and he rises or whatever.
Well, he wasn't supposed to actually go and kill. He just. Well, I mean, I haven't read it. I thought he just went to hell and was like, you know what? You guys all died before I was around, so I'll give you one out. All you have to do is say you're sorry, and that's it. And then loads of people are like, no, I'm not saying sorry. Who are you? And then they stayed in hell forever.
Yeah, because one thing, Jesus's act, it ripples through time to the future and the past. It's like not based in our timeline, but it's this act that saves sinners. And then
So like they have to repent and then now anybody just repents, right?
yeah, you know what it's like? It's like Joe Biden canceling college debt. That's basically what Jesus does.
Yeah, but Phil, like not everyone's
Let's
gonna
not
repent.
correlate those two things.
It's like literally it's like Satan could be redeemed if he just give up on his pride, right? And go like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But he won't. He's like, fuck you. I'm not saying sorry. I don't care if I have to be miserable forever.
There's got to be a story there. Like, what's the story if Satan does say he's sorry?
Yeah. Well, that's part of the fun like twists on it. Actually I don't want to give away the story.
I know what happens.
I
He
read
comes back to life.
Yeah, but no, I read like a comic that's about this kind of stuff, and it had a cool twist on the whole thing.
I feel like that's like something that Neil Gaiman would do. It's like, oh, Satan says he's sorry, and now he gets his wings back.
Yeah.
And he meets a little girl, and they become best friends, but she doesn't know that he's Satan.
I mean, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, it's I'm writing the story under my pen name Neil Gaiman, and that's basically it.
Mm-hmm.
Written Kneel.
Yeah, it's with a Y.
This is one thing that I think, I don't know too much about it, but I think Christianity is extra cool because they like allow / like this kind of stuff. Like they like creative spins, stories, lore, angels, demons, blah blah blah. They aren't like that's blasphemous. Although sometimes they are, and I don't like when they do that.
I'm sure there's some are that think creative interpretations.
It wasn't always like that, I guess.
Yeah. But that's kind of what I get the vibes from Islam being like that. They're like, don't say his name, don't draw him, don't put him in anything.
Don't put him in your South Park
Just
episode, or else we'll bomb you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wouldn't he want to be in things?
Yeah.
I feel like he for sure does.
Yeah,
Spread the
they
word.
should just print like 10 billion Bibles and send them to every random address in the world.
Yeah, but that'd be cool. I'm excited for Mel Gibson
Mm-hmm.
to do his thing. He's got a big beard now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, speaking of standing the test of time, that guy's face, it's a classic face.
Is it plastic? Like he doesn't age?
No, a
No, he's a
classic
classic.
face.
Oh,
He, in a
plastic.
way, didn't stand the test of time, but in a good way. His face.
Did you see Pierce Brosnan? How
He
cool
stood
he
the
looked?
test of time.
Yeah.
A guy wears one nice suit to a freaking event, and then everyone's sucking his D.
Nah, it's his hair, dude. It's his white hair.
You know,
I can only hope to have hair that cool.
Pierce Brosnan is my favorite Bond.
He was watching tennis, and that makes me think there's a Zendaya tennis movie that I want to see. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about.
What? Why would you ever want to see a movie with Zendaya in it?
I love her, but I saw a short. I saw a short of Zendaya, and she's like, "My hair was bone straight, and I had this curve in the front, a mustache in the front with bone straight hair. What was I thinking?" And I was like, "Oh, Zendaya, bone straight's hilarious. I want to start saying that."
What?
During
That
the
is
show,
Finding out so
During
much
the
about
show-
Narwhal today.
you
Aren't they
knew
like,
it was Zendaya. He's into her. I think she looks like fucking ET.
She does, dude.
I asked
I
a
don't-
friend why they like her, and they were like, "Oh, because she's like a normal girl. She's like the girl down the street."
Literally the
Ugh.
worst. The worst answer. I don't want to see normal people in my
That's
films,
a
right?
cope answer.
She is a good actress, but she doesn't really. I don't know. She doesn't strike me as charismatic, so I find it weird that she's everywhere.
Remember in the Odyssey, remember Homer's Odyssey when Odysseus, had that like dad bod, right? And that was just like a normal dude. No, I don't remember that. These guys are jacked legends. We don't want to see normal people in our films.
We were talking about if you could make a film that encapsulates the time, and if you could do it about now, and you could make now seem good and not shit.
Uh-huh.
During this show, I did figure out the film that you could make that could do that.
How do you do it?
Oh, and it's kind of just like freaking Beavis and Butthead Do America. It's just called Conspiracy
Parody.
or Conspiracy Theory, and it is like some younger people Superbad style, but probably a bit older, like maybe before college, but they didn't do well enough to get into college, but they still want to do like a summary thing anyway.
Yeah.
And like maybe they get money together to go on this road trip, but maybe to get the money to do it, they did something bad that means they have to leave town. And so there's the vibe of like, we have one chance, and when we get home, we're in big trouble. And they basically go on a road trip that's like really badly put together. Like the idiot losers who can't do anything. But over the course of this trip, they get caught up in a conspiracy theory. Like they see something that they shouldn't or something, or they get mistaken for someone else that you know what I mean, and get wrapped up in something. And like they could be these kind of like outsider lonery types that don't fall into any of the obvious groups, but then get like pinged around between the groups, and they kind of have their like fish out of water moment for like all these different perspectives. And like they could talk about a crazy relative that makes them feel the same way, and they could just end up solving.
Is that avocado?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So healthy.
Sorry, Jake.
It's all right.
I love avocado. Social media will have to come into play somehow. They'll have to like be van lifing, Instagramming the whole thing.
Yeah, make it a screen movie like Phil was saying.
No. Here's the thing. Here's how you do that. They try it and they get no reaction. And there's one guy who's constantly trying it, and maybe and like they're getting nothing. And they're like, why the fuck are you doing that, dude? No one's liking the posts. Like,
Yeah,
that
that's
would be a
kinda
way
funny.
that
I
makes
will
People
be
can relate to
a
that.
lighthearted fun of that area of the culture. It's not like, oh yeah, we got it. One of the girlfriends is like totally Instagram. It's just so many followers. It's like a guy would think that is cool, and he's putting effort into it, and the rest are like, stop doing that. No one cares. Like, they would be failures and losers at all of it, right? Like,
And on TikTok all the time, all of them.
Yeah. My idea for a movie like that is Philip Chalamet and Zendaya in the desert, and they have a kid. And it's the
Timothy.
least
Timothy.
amount
His
I
name
use.
is Timothy.
thanks
Why do I hear
tab?
Not the what?
Share the Chrome tab and not your screen.
I'm much better looking than that.
Okay,
Oh, is it
you didn't
echoing?
use screen, there's an echo.
Oh shit!
Just share the Chrome tab specifically instead of your screen. It fixes that. I don't want to see Timothy Champagne in any more films.
Here,
I
listen
don't
to
mind
this.
him. I don't mind him. He's actually good.
He eats peach semen.
He looks like a hummingbird.
What?
You'll like him after this.
This is quite a deep question, I have to warn you. Timothy, your role is quite a lot about fulfilling your destiny as such.
I'm a fire.
Is fate and destiny, are those things that you believe in?
Wow, great question. You could be the master of your fate, you could be the captain of your soul, but you have to realize that life is coming from you and not at you, and that takes time.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay, whatever.
What a
Cool.
goober.
It's the greatest little
Jake,
moment. Zendaya
your-
is great.
Your movie idea inspired me
To think
To
of
come
a
up
better
with a-
idea.
with with another idea. You decide if it's better. I'm not going to say it. My modern day movie idea would be a group of friends, probably 3 guys, college age, who
Go to find a dead body.
no. They're trying to get college scholarships on their school, whatever, collegiate sports team, and they can't, right? They're not good enough. So they go undercover as women and join the teams and compete against the women as women. And it's a comedy a la Sorority Boys, which was a early 2000s film where these 3
It
guys.
should be called Sorority Girls.
Right. Well, no, the film, there's actually a film called Sorority Boys, or no, yeah, Sorority Boys, because sorority is the chick thing. So there are 3 guys that get into college pretending to be women, and then hilarity ensues. They have to keep up this facade, and one falls in love with one of the chicks that he's in the sorority with, but he's pretending to be a chick, and she's a lesbian or whatever.
So classic.
So yeah, so this would be that take, but on woke culture with freaking
Yeah.
Tyler
That has
Durden.
sort of been done by the Daily Wire. They did a movie with that
Like,
plot.
I think that's too woke centric to be like a middle groundy, touching on everyone.
I don't care about being middle ground.
No. I mean,
of the times. I think that would be a funny.
Yeah.
But I think you might be right. It might be too.
What about like Bill and Ted?
people would misinterpret even if it's good. Like, you'd have people from different sides saying it's this, it's that, and there'd be like a million videos about it, and none of them would actually be talking about what it actually is. It'd be like what they want to represent it as to back up like their argument. Maybe
That's the other thing. That's like a negative spin that might be true on the Barbie movie. That it was trying too hard to comment on everything and comment on woke and comment on the reaction.
I reckon it could have pulled back on it trying to comment on things, and it would have been better.
Yeah, it would have been more trite. That would have been better.
I like the idea
More
though,
timeless.
Phil.
Damn it!
Look, that it's that Simpson style, like it parodies everyone. I think that's what these of the era thing, like American Pie, it kind of made fun of everyone.
So you have one of the guys is homophobic, right? But by the end of the movie, he realizes that he's gay.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah. What about this? a guy and a girl, they want to have a kid, but the guy is over vaccinated, so his sperm count's really low. So they're gonna go to a sperm bank, but then their best friend is like, "Let me make love to your wife. Let me be
Right.
the father of your child."
Wait a
And
minute.
he's
It's a film called Sperm Bank, and they go on a road trip to try and make loads of money by going on a tour to all the sperm banks because they won't let them redonate at the same one. So they just take a road trip of all the sperm banks to donate their sperm.
so they'll try and sneak it in later. But
I
I
like
don't know.
I like Narwhal's idea because it has the Vax thing in it, and it explores the big hot topic of the last 10 years, which is cucks.
Yeah, yeah.
So it
Irene really
encapsulates
loving
And
it.
the cucked vaxxed guy would be like, "What? No!" But the wife's like, "We want a child." He's like, "We'll just do the sperm bank." And she's like, "Just some rando?" He's like, "They let you pick.
Right.
You can select. You can select Adonis. You can select a handsome, tall man."
Right.
She's like, "Your friend is very tall and very handsome." He's like,
He's your
"Oh my
best
god!"
friend. You've known him since childhood.
And then he's like, "Okay,
Really,
I'll tell you
really
what. I'll agree to it, but you got to bring in some ringers." So they have a competition, and whoever wins gets to donate sperm for the
And they
new
do
child.
like a sex Olympics. They do like an Olympics to see who gets to bang his wife.
Yeah. It's like the trials of fitness and strength and smartness to see who
If any woman I
genetically.
did even thought about anything like that enough to voice it, the relationship would be over instantly.
It's
Or
also
it should be.
Pear didn't tell you it's also a porno.
Yeah.
Oh well, now you're talking.
Yeah. Well, maybe the guy can just dump her, the cucked guy. He's like, I'm gonna find someone else who won't have a contest to have sex with my friends.
I don't want our era to be captured in any film. I would. I don't think we need to remember this entire.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's not
Our era
like
sucks.
we're trying to be edgy or like I'm
Kind of
trying to
shit.
stick it to him. Like if you had some like outcast, middle of the road, idiot, college age people that weren't even smart enough to get into college, just ruined it. They failed it every way they tried to engage with any side of the culture, and it was true middle ground. I really think that would communicate. And it would be a way of like sending up the current era without it being like, I'm gonna show those fucking snowflake retards with, and then the other side of like, I'm gonna show those chode pigs. They're gonna rule the day they didn't like me. Like
Your mic is
You got
weird. I
muffled.
don't know what's
Yeah,
with your
you're
mic.
underwater again.
See download solo taking off.
Oh, good night.
Night.
Why? Yeah, why not? I think any movie that's like, whoa, young kids, millennials, am not interested. There's nothing less
college
cool.
age, not young kids.
Or yeah, we're not millennials are not college age anymore. Brain fart. But I mean, what about a story of just like some regular person trying to make it, who's coming from the bottom
In the
and
comic industry?
they're using in the comic industry. But no, just any industry in it, but they could use some social media that's very emblematic of our time, and that's what they're trying to pull resources from. I think a story like that could be timeless and also emblematic of our age, and it's not political. It's not just the experience of people that have gone to college or whatever.
It could be called Loser. The film could be called Loser, and it could be about a loser trying to actually make it.
Yeah.
What
about
if underlining theme is the main character really wants to get a Brazilian butt lift?
Yeah, I like that.
That's the winning idea. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sign by Hollywood tomorrow.
It's a woman trying to get extra plastic surgery, and then
Yeah.
her friend's trying to talk her out of it, but she's addicted. She has body dysphoria.
Oh yeah, that hasn't been done. That's good.
You're just hoping that she comes to her senses. You're like, please, you're such a nice lady. Don't ruin your face. And then the plastic surgeon's like, hey, if you got $10,000. There is a South Park
Accurate.
like that. What about the sci-fi future? This is another thing. Like, I've heard that they were saying the sci-fi writers of the 50s, 60s era, they were so good at predicting the future. One of the things they predicted was that there would be no sci-fi in the future because you can't predict the future in the future.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I was like, damn.
Well, guess they were right.
Yeah, like what do you
There's
even
not a lot
add?
of science fiction now.
I mean, it was like
No,
pretty
there's
easy
always
to
gonna
think
be
of video phones.
Yeah.
We got video. We got phones.
What
What
if the
about
phone
video
goes right in your ear? But then, like, explaining it is like, you're like, hey, you know, phones, video phones, cell phones, you know how cool that was? The future, it's gonna be kind of like that, but it's gonna be right in your ear. Oh, dude,
I
that's
think
crazy.
it's just too unpredictable because I think we will get to a point of something akin to cyber brains, whether or not that's actually brain implants, but we will reach that level of connectivity, and technology is exponential. The advancement of technology is so exponential and things evolve so fast, and there really is no predicting what happens next because it's not just, ooh, we have video and we have phone mashed the two together. It's more complex than that. It's really hard to do sci-fi going forward. The only thing is AI, but that's also been done before. People have
Yeah.
already predicted all the
Well,
follies of AI.
Yeah.
I did recently see this trailer for a video game that is new, and the aesthetic was very Blade Runner-y, like Blade Runner if all the flying cars looked like they were 1930s gangster cars, and you play a detective, and it's over the top cyber noir, I'd say, and they were talking about concepts like the AI girl that's speaking to you and like giving you your missions was trying to explain the concept of an afterlife, but it was shocking to the main character because there's no death in this like world seemingly. So it's interesting to think about, like, in the future, sci-fi might be like so far in the future where people forget about death, and death and an afterlife would be sci-fi to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's interesting, yeah.
Well, and
Going
I
like
don't know
extreme
if,
with it.
yeah, I don't know if that's what the concept was, but that's the vibe of what it was giving off, like, to me. It might not even be what it is, but that could be a cool idea where health and advancements has gone so far where everyone's immortal, and it's been so long since anyone has died that is a shocking idea to them.
Yeah. I have an old idea that's like a world that was made all infrastructure for like 100 billion on Earth, so like super overpopulated, and then something happened for the population to go down to like 1 billion, so like not extinct but just like way less, and they have to deal with, it's actually hard for them to survive in the, you know, the in the world that has been set up for so many more people.
Nice hat.
Nice.
Love the awkward song.
It's from your birthday.
Oh, very nice hat then.
No, Irene, what do you think of my new camera layout?
I think it's weird.
This is OnlyFans. We're getting the preview.
What do you
Yeah,
mean
it's
weird?
like
what is weird?
It's like the same pose that Rose.
it
got
does.
drawn
It looks
by
like
Jack.
some casting couch or OnlyFans kind of angle. It's a little weird, dude.
Just because it's abnormal?
Yeah, we'll get used to it.
Because
You just
you're
gotta break
lying
us
on a
in.
couch. You can do whatever you want. I guess that would be fun. Like, you know how some shows they will do a more relaxed version where everyone sits around and lounges in a different setting than the proper studios. Some podcasts will do that, whatever.
Yeah, this is like postmodern, I think. Postmodern take of streaming. Also, my mouse is over here too. I could like
What?
control things.
Okay,
Yeah,
I don't have a sofa in my studio, because why would I have that? I would go to my living room, but I don't have a camera I can bring with me.
Look, I could put emojis in the chat from here.
Good for you.
You got a super chat.
I need a wireless keyboard.
You do. They're
Super
great.
chat from Caleb Reynolds, $5. It says,
Caleb.
Jake, if I was to wear a dress, Should I wear a midnight red or pale blue?
Always midnight
What
red.
is
Always midnight red.
midnight red?
That's that
I've never
deep
heard.
red silky dress.
You ever dance
That's
with the
just
devil in the
wine
pale
red.
moonlight? You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Yeah,
I
is
don't
there
know
a
what's
slit?
happening.
Is there a slit in the side of the dress, Caleb?
Yeah. Pale blue is if you're blonde. You're not blonde.
Yeah, blue
Midnight
does
red.
tend to go better with blonde.
Hmm.
Oh, I got a new page in this week for my Western. Excited.
We can take a
Okay.
peek if you want to share.
No,
Paulus is here. What's up, Paulus?
Yo,
Oh well.
Paula says
I'm
it's
working.
sexy. What up?
Paulus is legit.
Yeah, Paula's cool.
I'm glad Paulus is interested. I'm working on a cover, but I don't know if I can show it.
He's not here even in the chat to ask anymore. So
Womp womp.
Oh yeah. Alex BRB says he's almost ready with the meme.
Yay!
That's exciting.
Wait,
I
what?
liked
I
the
didn't hear that.
presentation today. That was a good
Oh,
discussion.
Thanks.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
meme.
it got the brain juices pumping.
Yeah.
Got something pumping, all right.
Now I don't know what to do next month. That was my last good idea for a presentation.
I mean,
Oh
don't
no,
know.
you'll never have good ideas ever again.
I don't know what to do next fucking week.
We should start playing D&D.
I mean, yeah, but not D&D. No, Pathfinder's a lot more involved. I can make up some retarded D&D thing. It's a lot of work.
It really is a lot of work to prep for it. It's not that I don't want to do it. I haven't even had time to draw my own comic, guys.
It really is a lot of work. So it'd be like, okay, I got to think of a story, and then I've got to think. You would have to, because you want to simplify it, right? So you'd be like, you'd give people a certain set of rules of what they can do, and it would be like, here's the situation. Just think of one thing you want to do, and then we'll maybe have like 3 character traits, and you could be like, you have a number in each one, and then I can go, that sounds like it links to this character trait. Roll the dice, and then you'd get like the roll plus the number, and then the person who's hosting would think on the fly of how that goes. And then I guess you'd move to like the next step. It's so much work.
What you have to do is first we do a session 0, and I actually have a Pathfinder module on my channel where Nick, my colorist, DM'd me and a few other people playing a very simple Pathfinder module, and even that took forever. We did a session 0 where we built our characters on stream to show everybody how character creation works. We kept it simple. We started at level 1, but on the GM side, this is why it's so difficult, because even if you have a module prepared, you have to you have to be prepared for all the eventualities, because you're basically the computer for the game. So if you have to prepare all the monsters that they're going to encounter, and all the side characters, all the NPCs, and also have on hand all the rules like grappling rules or water combat rules or traveling rules or what the fuck ever that the players might just go crazy and decide to do, because it's open world.
You just improv it though.
Well,
but when it's because the game is supposed to be balanced. There is improv acting, but when it comes to combat, it's how do you determine who wins? It's not just, you have to make rolls for that, ROLLS. So what are the rules behind that? Those are tied to your abilities, and there are rules for different types of combat that make the game balanced and fair between all the different types of characters. So that's why you have to prepare a certain amount of rules and all this other material, regardless of how simple the module is.
But that's if you're gonna like do it seriously and then be like, we're actually gonna play proper Pathfinder. I think what you'd probably actually do is make up a new thing that's super simplified.
Ass
and it-
finder.
Yeah, called Ass Finder. And you'd like the whole character would be a group, and they'd be presented with a situation. It'd be like, okay, as a group, how do you deal with this? And it'd be like, we choose this character to do this, and then they'd make a roll. It would be like basic baby stuff, and it would probably be way beneath you, Irene. But like, that's probably how you do it on a show like this.
I'll run it, yo.
It's not beneath me. I'm just like, I don't.
I know that
I
no,
don't know
as
how
in
to do
like,
that.
what's the point, right? Like, the point would be to think of silly, for us to make up silly stuff on the fly, then do a roll to see what happens, and then the GM would be like, make up a funny way that you succeed or fail. Do you know what I mean? That's essentially what it is, and then you step onto the next bit of the story for a stream.
That could be fun. No, that could be fun. That's just not how my brain works. So that sounds like fun. I wouldn't be able to run that. I would want to play things by, like figure things out, take it seriously.
It is fun when you take it super serious, though. It's really good.
Look at Alex. We are
Yeah, because you get to make fun of me.
Huh? No, I meant not you, as in the royal you, like as in anyone.
Alex says,
it is
sorry,
You
I don't
should
have the
seen me in
patience
last
for
session.
tardation.
I wish I was there.
My character got really pissed off in the last game, and I was like, I don't want Gorbald to have to be annoyed. I want him to be a silly, goofy guy.
Yeah, no, we've had that. I mean, we've only been dealing with, like, slavery and all kinds of other slightly heavy subjects in the game.
There was a possibility that my character would have completely turned on the entire party if the situation had gone differently. And I was like, I didn't want to do it, but I'm like, in the character, he would. So...
Who's got the cops coming after them?
Me.
The first you got the Air Force, now you got the cops. Like, what the fuck is happening?
He lives in friggin'.
It's like Crack Central.
He lives in Chaz or whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's right. You live in Commie Land.
Oh, no.
They're coming
All
for
right.
you.
The meme is ready. Let me see what we got here.
The meme is on. The meme is on.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Alex. Well done. Well done. Oh.
What do we got over here? We got Wraith of God.
All right.
Ooh.
There's Timothy Chalamet and Zendaya.
He made it?
Nice.
Timothy.
That's awesome.
There's Fight Club. Timeless versus time. Test of time. Ornate. Contrast. Impact. Poignant. Provoke.
All words make a powerful contract. That would be a great song that someone should.
Dude,
I like that
awesome.
cute little professor. That's great.
There's Charlize. She got mentioned once. We were wondering if it was her. It was definitely not her, I'm pretty sure. That's awesome.
She's like, are they talking about me?
Yeah.
Is that
Who's
her?
this?
Oh.
Yeah, that's Charlize.
Is that Homer?
But maybe that's her from the movie, so maybe she is in the movie. I don't know.
Oh.
I think
From
that's
Mighty
Homer.
Joe. Mighty Joe.
Mighty Joe.
Look at-
That might
Look
be Odysseus when he comes
Odysseus,
back
yeah.
from to fucking Athens or whatever.
Oh,
Wait,
yeah,
are these
yeah.
like different parallel universe versions of, but like they're not actually us. You know what I mean? Because they don't have our faces, or are they us? But we're in.
Wait,
like,
we have to read. We have to read it first.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it didn't exist before then. Nelson Mangala.
Mangala.
Affected. Would be
I
Mangala
like-
affected to not look like
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is. Yeah, sorry, Rini.
I guess that's me. I'm gonna chisel every beat your fingers into metal plates and burn them.
That must be Phil.
I've been doing a roast chicken every day.
No, that's Jake.
Jake. for
When I
sure.
said doing,
He's
I
been
meant
doing the roast
roasting in
chicken.
I meant roasting it in the oven.
It's an American pie.
Alex clearly misunderstood that.
Yeah, this was a good quote. I'm not building a world. I'm constructing a planet.
That's cool.
That's a world.
It kind of like invents the idea of the spirit world and or souls and or ghosts. I think that its main claim to fame. Don't quote me on this.
As he quotes you on it.
And then in here, yeah, there's Jake, Rini, Bancroft, Phil, me in the middle. We're doing something where it's like Time Lord.
No, that's
Matrix
an old
types.
meme. It's one of the old memes. It's one of the oldies, but did it stand the test of time? Like that was the last time I drank Jaeger.
Right.
That's awesome. Yeah, it is.
Good old
Test of
times.
time.
Like Irene looked like she had cat ears with the messy hair. It's a good look.
So this is the only
thank
thing.
you.
So is this just the Emerald Tablet guy, or Odysseus, or Homer, and maybe just old guy?
We should
So-
give Alex an over-the-shoulder shot of each of our heads for him to put in his catalog. Like we
Oh,
should
yeah.
go full screen each of us and do like an over-the-shoulder thing for him.
Yeah.
Who's the go all the way to the top? Who are those up there?
Fight Club
Oh,
and Timothy Chalamet.
One guy's named Fight and the other guy's named Club.
Yeah. No, seriously, it's Tyler Durden,
Oh.
and then the other guy. I'm pretty sure he doesn't have a name. I'm trying to think if they give him a name ever in the
Huh.
movie.
no, I thought he did.
He has a name nobody remembers because nobody cared.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a funny theory with Fight Club that I kind of like, where it's that, yeah, he hallucinates Tyler Durden, but he also hallucinates the girl. What's her name? Mara or whatever? Or
I like the theory that Tyler Durden
Tyler Turducken.
Goo Goo Gaga?
Tyler Durden is the real one, and he imagines the other guy.
Oh, that's funny.
Like
Yeah.
he needs to imagine another character that thinks he's cool next to, and isn't just like a weirdo loser.
That ruins the movie in a really funny way.
Tyler Durden is the real guy, and Incredible Hulk original actor is like the fake made up guy, and
Who kills him in the end?
yeah,
Oh my gosh.
and he only thought him up so he could look cool.
You know they did a sequel to that in comic book form. The writer did.
Yeah. Did you ever read it?
No.
I kind of want to, but I don't know.
Didn't
Maybe I
look
should.
great.
Thanks for the links, Alex.
Let's give Alex our over the shoulder shots.
Oh, so like we do it now?
Yeah, right.
I
Then he
guess
can
we
just
do
take
that.
screenshots of it. Then he has.
I'll get
it
on my
for-
knees for this one.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so
Make
I'll
it
go
big-
first. So
Okay.
I go.
Wait, that's just the back. It's got to be 3/4 view. Like he's got to get the 3/4 back of the head, so it's like.
I'm
part
ready
of the
for mine.
face. Yeah, there we go. That's the. Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Do me next.
Okay.
See if this works.
It's too dark. Turn a light on, my dude.
He can crop you out and brighten you in Photoshop.
You can use the light and make it lit. It's not. It's gonna be. This is completely unusable.
I know. It's just gonna be like.
I'll turn my ring light on.
Okay, maybe you can color shift it in whatever primitive. I don't know if he even uses GIMP. He probably uses like paint.com or something.
Yeah, he does.
Paint.net. This is even worse.
No, it's good. What are you talking about? It's
In
great.
front of the couch. There you go. Yeah, you got that over.
Right next to your guy. Yeah, that's good. Okay, Jake.
How is it?
That's in profile. You're not over the shoulder. You got to turn more. Turn more. There, that's about video games.
Most low effort. We can't even see your hands. You're too.
Yeah, your hands are cropped
You
off.
gotta. Yeah, you gotta. Okay. You gotta back up more. Back up. Can you back up your chair more?
You look like you're shooting a Ghostbuster blast.
Is this okay?
Okay. All
this
right.
enough?
Fine. That's. Okay, that's good enough. Ah!
You'll see how difficult it is now. No, come on. It's gonna be blurry.
Nice.
Good
Okay.
luck.
Nice.
Alex.
All right, there's a lot to work with, Alex. That's good. Nice job.
We did our duty.
Nice. And we have 40 seconds until it's at 3 hours, so I might end it right at 3 hours. So,
Do it.
and I won't play an outro video either. This I do have that capability, but we'll keep this just for this show.
Whoops.
No extra bibness. We're going to make sandwiches the old way.
Gotta do turtle mouth.
Alice in Wonderland is part of Western canon.
Oh yeah, totally. Pretty money. Dude, we got 6 seconds, guys. I'm clicking it. Bye everyone.
Bye.